The Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is backing a fair points-based system for immigration.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 6th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, radio and online. You should know all this by now. Wherever you are, you can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Well, Keir Starmer says his party will not support open borders and believes immigration is not the solution to solving challenges facing the NHS. He's criticised the government for making short-term fixes and sticking plasters over problems when it comes to the crisis facing the health sector.
The Prime Minister will bring back the Bill of Rights as a package of measures to stop migrants from crossing the Channel. GB News has an exclusive report from one of the unofficial migrant camps in Dunkirk, as many try to make the journey to the UK.
And the climate summit, COP27, kicks off later today. Rishi Sunak is going to use the platform to urge world leaders to act faster in transitioning away from fossil fuels to clean energy.
And is it really just too early to get into the festive spirit? Well, many of us have already been to Christmas markets or got those decorations out the attic. We'll discuss why putting up your tree or listening to Christmas songs now can transport you back to your childhood.
As ever, are you doing it? Are you a guilty one? You know who you are. If you've got your Christmas decorations already up, do email us, tell us why. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has said immigration is not the best option to ease the pressure within the NHS.
He says he believes more funding towards training is needed before looking to overseas for recruitment, and that Labour does not support an open border.
Now, his comments come ahead of a protest planned by the refugee charities outside the Manston Asylum Processing Centre in Kent later on today.
Well, joining us now is former Labour Minister for Europe and author of Must Labour Always Lose, Dr Dennis McShane. And it's lovely to see you again. Thanks
Good morning,
for coming
good morning.
in.
Hi.
My goodness, there's plenty to talk about politically at the moment.
There sure is. Just looking at the Sunday Telegraph front page story, catastrophe for ambulances arriving on time, people being left, literally they're claiming up to 50,000 older people dying. I'm not sure of the figures, because we're so short-staffed.
In some cases, ambulances have taken 2 days.
It is, but that is where we are after a decade of, I'm sorry, austerity politics. I don't want to get into Tory bashing this early in the morning, but that's a concrete decision of the government, and it's exactly the same problem in that we used to be part of a general pool of European doctors and nurses and care workers. That was shut down by Boris Johnson, and now we're importing them from Nigeria, India, Pakistan, Philippines. I'm not against them. I've probably been treated by doctors from all over the world all my life. My kids have. But I heard a lovely Indian lady on, I think, the BBC a couple of months ago saying, oh, that's wonderful, they're recruiting me as a doctor and I can bring over my two children and I can settle in the UK. The doctors who came in from Poland and elsewhere sort of went backwards and forwards. There's a European-wide pool of trained medical personnel, and except we're spending a fortune and we're increasing the number of immigrants coming into Britain simply from thousands of miles away, simply because of the obsession with just turning our backs on any relationship with Europe.
But it's fascinating, though, isn't it, that Keir Starmer has taken what is a pretty sort of Brexity line in saying, well, immigration is not the answer to solve problems within the NHS. Open border policy, well, we've heard this before, but to hear it loud and clear, open border policy is not something he would support. I mean, it's coming out with clearly to try and pull over Tory voters.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with that. I mean, he talks about a fair points-based system, but here I have the government's press release issued exactly 2 years ago. We are ending free movement and will bring in a firm and fair points-based system. Now, I don't know if they were copying Keir Starmer 2 years ago or he's copying them.
Well, he's copying them, isn't he? Let's be honest.
But we're moving in a circle, and at the same time, people are just waiting. One of my left knee from a skiing accident isn't quite as great as it was when I was an altar boy. And maybe I need an operation.
You were an altar boy?
I was a very, very good altar boy. I might need an operation, but I have to wait for ever. And that is because we can talk about training up doctors. How long does it take to train a surgeon in this country to be really top of the grade?
10, 12 years.
Exactly. So you can announce that now. It's not going to. It will happen long after Rishi Sunak's gone. I hope Sir Keir's the Prime Minister after he's gone. And we have failed to train. I've heard this all my life.
So Keir Starmer's wrong, is he, when he criticises the government for sticking plaster solutions? When you're
no.
Because you're saying, aren't you? Look, right, all well and good. Sir Keir's saying get people trained up and recruited and all the rest of it. Great. But we're going to need sticking plaster solutions in the meantime, aren't we?
I think we're going to need to look after our people, especially with a rapidly ageing population. And broadly speaking, 90% of all the medical or hospital visits you'll need are between the ages of about 6 months and 70 or 80 years. And after that, they really start piling in. And it's the same problem everywhere in Europe and in America. Go to America, there are lots and lots of doctors from outside the States working there. And to shut off, nobody's talking about a rejoin or a return to total free movement, but to shut off all the access to men and women who've been properly trained. We used to send recruitment teams to Portugal for our nurses.
Shouldn't something as important as the NHS, and we hold it so close to our heart, don't we, something as important and fundamental as healthcare in this country, be actually governed by a cross-party governing body? Because time and again, when you talk about this with anybody, whether they're Tory, whether they're Labour or whatever they think they are, they actually think it's too important to just leave to politics. And anyway, politics is so short-lived. You can have a government in for a very short period of time. They tinker with the NHS. Whatever they do, they're always accused of tinkering with it. There are no long-term solutions, and something like the NHS needs a long-term strategy.
It sure does. I mean, here's the current most important tool that the NHS is issuing in parts of the country. It's called a pair of pliers. It's because in parts of the country, Devon, Cornwall, and rather more remote areas, there's a complete shortage of NHS dentists. And people... No, the reports are there on all the TV programmes. This is what Rishi Sunak's sending out. You know, the old people just put this in there, pull it out, put the old Kleenex on, and on you go. That is a state we're reduced to, but there's no real concern about it. There was a moment, I mean, Tony Blair had the mother and father of all rows with Gordon Brown, and he took on the Treasury, the blob, and said, increase healthcare spending. And Gordon famously said to him, you've ruined my effing budget. And Tony was proud to do it. But then we had George Osborne, then we had austerity, and now we've got Brexit. And so we're just... I mean, I worry there are people on the right of the Conservative Party, the Goldman Sachs gang, the hedge fundies. They'd love us to move to an American type of privatised healthcare system. The boss of Bupa earned £4 million last year. That's their vision of the NHS. And if we all get so fed up and bored with it, there's a great headline in the Daily Telegraph the other day by Alistair Heath, the famous Daily Telegraph writer, saying conservatism and the NHS are incompatible. Yeah,
but the problem is, and you've got to acknowledge this, haven't you, that you can understand people going down that path because the NHS is now just a bottomless money pit that actually needs proper reform. And say at the minute with the state of politics, as was ever thus, people are just too frightened to do it.
They're frightened to actually turn round and say to the very wealthy of this country, you know, what can you do with all your money? How many Porsches can you buy at once? How many racehorses can you own at once? How many yachts can you own at once? Why not, if you want to live in Britain, contribute to Britain, or have a big revolution and go the full American privatisation road in which the healthcare...
Why should it be down to the richest to fund the NHS?
Well, not in the same way. When I say rich, I mean anybody who earns a good salary. I mean, I know GBNews salaries aren't... I used to be president of the NUJ. I know they're not as high as I would have wished. But you really have to make that fundamental choice. Do we want an NHS where every small child goes in without even thinking about what it will cost, what's on their credit card balance? Or do we want to go into the American system? I mean, I'm happy to see a choice made. I mean, every country makes its own choices. We could take best examples from different European European countries, Denmark or Germany, or France, wherever you like, apply some of that. But it does require, and the real problem is, we've now got, when you say, there's a solution around the corner, there isn't. We're all getting older. We need a national debate. I completely agree if we could bipartisan this. We don't have this row about the royal family. We don't have this row about funding NATO or the British Army. But we do all the time. And watch Jeremy Hunt. I know he's a decent guy. He's just down the road from me, and he was an NHS secretary, had to manage the George Osborne cuts era. He won't want to punish the NHS, but we're so short of doctors, and instead of, you can phone them up, and they're happy to come. They like working in Britain. Everybody loves the NHS in the continent. Bring them in and just, I'm not talking about rejoin or ending Brexit or anything, but can we just ring fence the NHS from the Brexit obsessives?
And maybe from politics altogether.
Altogether, yes. I'm all for that. Fewer politicians.
Well, now you've said it. Now you've got the ball rolling. Dennis McShane, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, if that hasn't got you going already at this time in the morning, at only 11 minutes past 6, I don't know what will, but we'd love to hear from you. As ever, gbviews at gbnews.uk. What would you do about the NHS? How would you try and fix it long term? Do you think it should be ring-fenced from politicians?
I think Rishi Sunak's got the right idea. I mean, he's certainly verging onto Tory territory with all of that, but that's what you do in the general election when we know...
Sorry, do you mean Keir Starmer?
Keir Starmer, what did I say?
Rishi.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
His name pops up every so often.
It does. Certainly. Yes, Keir Starmer. Because moving on to Tory territory, I think is because you win an election by winning the centre ground, don't you? And is that centre ground?
Yes.
Maybe our centre ground is moving slightly more to the right. I don't know. Anyway, let us know what you think. Meanwhile, sticking with politics and sticking with migration, the Home Secretary's pushing for the biggest ever deal with France to tackle illegal migrants on the south coast.
The agreement, which the UK hopes to finalise in the coming weeks, would see an increase in French officers patrolling the beaches.
Well, meanwhile, official figures show that channel crossings have reached almost 40,000 this year. And our reporter Paul Hawkins has been to the French coast to speak to some of those about to make the dangerous journey.
This is one of the many unofficial migrant camps on the outskirts of Dunkirk. We were told by humanitarian workers they tend to be segregated. Afghans living down the tracks, Albanians a growing number but seemingly elusive. This one mostly Kurdish. And mostly young men escaping war or persecution in Iraq.
I am Dana from Iraq. I was 40 years old. I work in Baghdad. When Saddam took me in jail and take one kidney for me in left side. But nobody need to say, yeah, you are Dana, you are late. Everybody asked to me, you are not this person. This person is dead in Iraq. But I am not dead, I am here. No, I come here to France 2 weeks. I try go with boat to England.
You tried 3 times on the boats, and what happened?
He take me in the beach where I go to in the boat.
Okay.
There I come back. I not go inside the boat.
But you're still going to try?
Of course.
Why the UK? Do you want to work in the UK?
I like work. Everybody like work on merit, on make children.
What kind of jobs can you do?
That's my job.
So that's your forklift driver's license from Germany?
Yes, I work 2 years.
Okay.
I work very well.
Okay. And how many times will you keep trying on the boat?
I stay here, or I go dead here, or I go in UK.
Okay.
I no have choice.
A 15-minute drive, or if you're a migrant, 2-hour walk away are beaches like this. Plage du Petit. 2-hour walk from the camp where desperate people like Dana meet the people smugglers, but only during calm seas. Today wasn't that day.
This boat looks like it's been deliberately torn, ripped, and we know that the authorities in France try to destroy the boats if they find them by stabbing them and shredding them with a knife. So quite possibly this boat was going to be used to cross the channel, but the authorities have got here first.
Everyone here wants to get to the UK. Many have tried multiple times.
A lot of Albanian men are now going on over on the boats. How do you feel about Albanian men being here? Because you're coming from Iraq, but Albania is a safe country.
Yes, I ask also for the Albanian why you coming, saying we don't have work there.
And are they going to the UK to get involved in crime or to work?
For Albania, there is work is number one. What thinking for?
The British people are scared of people coming over on boats. What would you say to them, to people who are scared?
I have to say for the people, I am sorry for this situation, but in our land is problem mafia in my land. It's not a good government as England. British people have right. That's scary for the people going there because give too much criminal.
This Kurdish family of 8 were standing up because most of their tents were full of water. They told me they were 20 minutes from Dover when they had to turn back on their last attempt. Among them, 8-month-old Mila. Rats are everywhere here. Disease is common. Life, especially in winter, difficult. One migrant told me he'd rather stay here than be deported to Rwanda if the government gets its way. But others said anywhere is better than these camps. The UK, attractive because the language is easier. There are jobs and some have family there.
There's this weird symmetry that 82 years ago, during the evacuation of Dunkirk, a flotilla of small boats left this French coastline for Britain. It was a moment of hope for us that as allies we would regroup and then come back to liberate the French in Western Europe. It's weird that 82 years later there's another flotilla of small boats leaving the French coast for Britain, and for some in those boats it's a moment of hope for them.
And it's that hope that the criminal gangs are exploiting. In the meantime, the boats keep coming. Paul Hawkins, GB News.
And they do keep coming. 40,000 so far this year. It's just not sustainable.
It is cruelly ironic, though, as Paul said there, that and it's at Dunkirk. I mean, I know there are other beaches too, but, you know, Dunkirk, the most famous beach in recent times for that flotilla of small boats, and yet it's happening again, but in a very different way.
In a very different way.
And what's the solution? If you were Prime Minister, what the heck is the solution? Clearly those people are human beings. When you talk, the rhetoric matters, doesn't it? Because when you talk about invasions or people flooding in, or what was the phrase that David Cameron used that got him into so much trouble?
There was a swarm, was it?
Swarm, something that's swarming, yeah. That's one way to put it, isn't it? But when you actually see the human beings there and hear that they've got very reasonable points.
But I think this is part of the issue, actually, is that people either go on the very human side or they go on the sort of macro side where they look at the impact on the country. And in a way, politicians, whatever we think, I think politicians need to take the bigger view and say, because if you let everyone in or just, you know, and be absolute humanitarians in that sense, what impact does it then have on the country?
But there has to be a humanitarian answer to it without being cruel, and whilst also recognising and acknowledging the humanity involved.
Which is why you've got to quickly process.
Yes.
You've got to quickly process, and then people who, on a humanitarian basis, can stay, and those rest are shipped back.
Yes.
And it's taking years now when it should be taking, frankly, a couple of weeks.
Yes.
How do you get it down to that? I mean, I don't know.
Can't quite get your head around why it's taking so long in each case.
Yeah.
But that's the nub of the issue, isn't it? The processing's got to be quickened up.
Yeah.
Hastened.
How do you do that? If you've got any ideas on how to do that, let us know.
Yeah. Stand for Parliament.
Yes, well, please, yes. 19 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with what else is going on today. And Rishi Sunak is heading to Egypt for COP27. He previously said he wasn't going to go. In a statement, the Prime Minister called the fight against climate change fundamental to our future and said we need to move further and faster to transition to renewable energy.
The government could revive the British Bill of Rights in a bid to tackle the number of migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats. The legislation would give the UK courts supremacy over the European Court of Human Rights, preventing judges in Strasbourg interfering in the government's Rwanda policy. The bill was shelved by Liz Truss, but the Justice Secretary, the new one, Dominic Raab, said its return would end the abuse of UK laws.
An investigation's been launched into Cabinet Office Minister Sir Gavin Williamson over messages he allegedly sent to the then Tory Chief Whip. The messages, obtained by the Sunday Times, appear to show Sir Gavin accusing Wendy Morton of using the death of the Queen to punish senior MPs who were out of favour with the Truss government. Rishi Sunak was reportedly told of Ms Morton's complaint before he appointed Sir Gavin as Minister without portfolio.
And in the sprint for what the Americans call the midterms, the biggest names in American politics came to Pennsylvania in an effort to tip the vote in their favour. Joe Biden and Barack Obama campaigned for the Democrat nominee John Fetterman. And Donald Trump was showing his support for the Republican candidate and TV personality, Dr. Mehmet Oz. And this comes after Donald Trump teased that he is himself thinking of running to be president again.
See, what just turns me slightly there is, and I know nothing about Dr. Mehmet Oz,
Me either.
but TV personality. I don't really know that TV personalities should be getting into politics in any country.
Well, President
particularly.
Zelensky.
Well, I know.
He's a
Well,
comedian and TV personality.
He was. Look at Ronald Reagan. So, I mean, I know that.
No, he served many, many years as governor of California.
So, I mean, so there are exceptions to the rule. But I sort of think we're in danger of turning politics into a reality TV show, which I don't like.
It depends. I mean, the word TV personality can cover anything, can't it? I mean, there are some very, very brainy and clever people who present TV programmes, and others who just aren't. Put it mildly. Can I just ask about the midterms?
Yes.
I always understood that the midterms in America were a polling thing, where people just, like opinion polls.
Right.
I didn't know there was an actual vote.
Yeah, it's a vote for Congress, or parts of Congress.
Oh, I see, just because those votes happen at different times.
Yeah.
So that's why they're a very good gauge of the...
A bit like local elections over here. Think of it in that,
Yes.
that sense.
Timed differently
Yeah.
than the general. I
Yeah.
see. I'm with you.
There you go.
Makes it interesting, though, doesn't it?
You see.
And again, what I find... I despair is that there are, apart from Dr. Oz, that we don't know much about, where are the new names? Where's the young blood coming forward? There doesn't appear to be any.
That's what they need. It's what we need.
That's what we all need, yes, we do.
Anyway, it's 6:22. More to come for you, including a look ahead to COP27, where Rishi Sunak, yes, he is now going, will urge world leaders to move faster towards cleaner energy. First, though, here's your weather.
Well, the UK is looking particularly wet, I think, across southeastern areas this morning. There will be sunshine and heavy showers elsewhere. Here are the details.
So, quite a breezy end to the morning across the southwest of England. Sunny spells, but also a few showers, some of which could be heavy and thundering.
Meanwhile, across the southeast of England, thicker cloud is expected, giving some more persistent outbreaks of rain, which could give a bit of localised flooding.
Let's move on to South Wales. There's a better chance of some bright spells breaking through the cloud at times, although showers will never be far away and some of them will be a little bit hefty.
A band of organised showers are likely to work their way eastwards across the Midlands during the middle part of the day, so be prepared for some spray and standing water on the roads.
Now, across the northeast of England, the weather's looking quieter. Should be mainly dry. However, a grey, locally misty or foggy start, and there's still likely to be a lot of low cloud around.
Southern Scotland will be quite showery with only short-lived brighter breaks, although it will be breezy, so the showers should push through fairly quickly in the southern wind.
Now, a mixed bag of weather on the cards for Northern Ireland. It's going to be bright and breezy at times, but with the chance of the occasional shower.
So there you have it. Rain will clear from the southeast this afternoon, with eastern parts having clear spells this evening. Blustery showers will continue further west. And that's your weather today.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
.26 morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, the UN Climate Summit, COP27, begins later today, and Rishi Sunak, who is now going, will be urging world leaders to move further and faster in transitioning away from fossil fuels. He'll be pledging to make the UK a clean energy superpower.
Now, everyone's favourite Swedish climate activist, Greta Thunberg, has claimed the event is greenwashing the issue and therefore she's not attending. Meanwhile, Egyptian authorities have had to add additional security measures in Sharm el-Sheikh because of local protests.
Well, here to tell us his thoughts is Senior Lecturer of Natural Sciences at Bangor University, Dr. Christian Dunn. A very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us so bright and early. What do you expect to come out of this? I mean, a lot of people who are watching right now will probably say nothing ever happens after these COP summits. Why do we do them? However, even the Prime Minister has changed his mind and he's decided to go.
Yes, indeed. I mean, these COP summits are absolutely essential. However, as you've suggested there, the rhetoric already is fantastic. You know, saying that we should become a superpower in clean energy, the fact that Rishi Sunak is now going, all the rhetoric, all the visuals at the current time are good. Well, most of them. However, you're right. The issue is the speech is good, but often, you know, there's no actions that we want to see afterwards, or very limited actions that we want to see afterwards. So coming out of this summit, yes, it'd be great to see some certain issues come out of it, like loss and damage coming out. But really, what we've got to see is actions now. You know, it's been called a watershed moment, this COP. I think the last COP was probably called a watershed moment as well. It's getting very clear to anyone that kind of studies climate change and climate studies that we are reaching a point where we could be getting to some tipping points where then all bets are off the table about what happens. So now we need some action, not just the kind of the good rhetoric, which we'll get probably from this COP.
See, I'm fascinated by the fact you started off by saying these COP summits are absolutely essential. You finish off by acknowledging, really, that nothing ever happens. They're all watershed moments, but we may perhaps be coming to some sort of tipping point. I have to. They fill me with despair because there's all these huge meetings, lots of rhetoric, but no action. So, I mean, what makes you think this is going to be any different?
I'd love to say this is going to be different, but I can't say that because I don't know. When I say it's essential, I do mean that, because it is a chance for world leaders to actually get together to discuss this, and action does come out of it. However, that action is probably not strong enough at the present time. So they are essential and we need to have them. However, the actions that come out of them need to be stronger. We have had good things that have come out of them. And without a doubt, there has been some promises on the finance and some delivery on the finance. There has been some delivery on our greenhouse gas cutting. So the action has happened. It's often kind of not the kind of sexy action that we want to see, perhaps the kind of the big kind of take home, big kind of actions. But there has been movement, without a doubt, since they've started. And let's face it, it was only at the last COP that we weren't discussing in COP whether climate change was actually happening. I mean, that's quite startling, I think, for a lot of people that kind of are into the climate change kind of research. But that was quite a big moment in itself, that all world leaders have now agreed that climate change is happening and that humans are involved in the changing of the climate. So that was a big action in itself. But again, probably not the big kind of take-home message which people wanted. Other messages that came out last time was that we need to start using nature, so natural habitats, to help us mitigate and adapt to climate change. That was a big action too, but again, probably not the kind of the thing that people wanted to hear. They wanted to hear that we were all going to slash our emissions by 50% within 2 days or something like that. That didn't come out of it, but actually those incremental steps are happening. But as I would suggest, those incremental steps now need to be sped up quite a lot.
What's interesting as well is that all of the countries that are going, and of course that includes President Biden, doesn't it? He has acknowledged and he is going. But all of these countries, not just Britain, are worried about the cost of living crisis and the energy security crisis and all of those things. And yet they're still going. So they're tackling the same problems that our own Prime Minister has got on his in tray. He's changed his mind about going. Why do you think that was?
Yeah. So I think when I said right at the start, the visuals and the rhetoric always matter for this. And I think at the last COP, Boris Johnson administration, their visuals, no matter what you may thought of Boris Johnson and the government, etc., their visuals were very strong then for trying to do something about climate change, trying to do something to protect the environment. And then we had Liz Truss, whose rhetoric and visuals were very not supportive of the environment and climate change. And now we've got Rishi Sunak, who seems to be, in my mind, at the present time, sort of a little bit in between, stepping between the lines. He's flip-flop, he's not going, then he is going. I think it's right that he goes because climate change is absolutely essential, and it will, as government's own reports show, the discourse report that came out last year shows that the environment and the economy are intrinsically linked together. If we trash the environment, if we trash the climate, our economy will suffer. So it's absolutely right that Rishi Sunak goes to COP, and other world leaders do too. And some of them are obviously not going, and their absence is going to be seen, and it's not right.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Interesting. It's an interesting line about the environment and the economy, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I do sort of think that the more sustainable power we have, the better. I mean, in that it's cleaner, but also it's about energy security more than anything else at the moment. Even if you're not remotely green, you do sort of think energy security has got to be a good thing. Moving away from oil means moving away from Russia. It's also interesting, isn't it, that Rishi Sunak's statement today, ahead of him going out there, is that the UK has to become the centre for green sustainable energy. I can't remember exactly the phrase. Energy superpower.
There. Well, that's borrowing from what Keir Starmer said a couple of weeks ago directly, isn't it? Yeah. He said that his plan was to make Britain a clean energy superpower.
We don't need to be a superpower. We just need to provide for ourselves, don't we?
But they both stress that, part of that solution is to be green. And I don't want to be sitting here, not that I would be in 10 years' time, but you know what I mean? I don't want to be in this position.
You might be.
Please don't. Although if the cost of living crisis goes on, we're all going to have to work till we're 80, aren't we? You don't want to be sitting here saying this in 10 years' time. We should have invested in green, sustainable energy 10 years ago.
It's getting that balance,
need to do something now.
It's getting the balance about the problems we're facing now as well. Anyway, I'm sure you've got a few views on that. Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. But don't go anywhere because we've got the papers heading your way in just a few minutes.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
It's 6:36. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Good morning to you.
Morning, says Dave. Morning, Dave. He's up early. He says, we put up our Christmas tree on the 1st of November because we couldn't wait. We're going to Spain for a month in a couple of weeks, and we wanted a bit of Christmas at home before we go. I don't blame you. I think it's brilliant. Get those decorations up.
An aunt in Hereford said, I moved my living room around yesterday, ready for Christmas, had the Christmas music on, and going to put everything up next weekend at the latest. It's a little bit early for me.
And now's the time you can also watch really stupid Christmas movies. There are so many of them about, but they make you feel good, don't they?
No, end of the month. End of the month, then maybe. But it's a bit too early for me now. But anyway.
I'm surprised at you, because you had a big bonfire party and everything. You like a bit of shazazz.
I do like a bit of shazazz. Well, a big bonfire party. It was only me and him.
Yeah,
but
and
never,
your rockets.
And the rockets and the...
twirly things and
very good. Catherine wheels were excellent this year.
Were they? I'm so pleased. And did you? Even though it was pouring with rain and bitterly cold, and windy as well, did you still stand outside, determined,
we did
Brits, with your anorak on and your woolly hat?
We had the big fire going, and we had our tea outside in the rain, burgers and chips and a bit of salad. Yeah,
see, that's true British spirit, isn't it?
Love it. It's when I'm at my happiest doing all that.
Good.
Anyway, let's look at the papers for you. The Sunday Times leads with a hacking scandal involving leading politicians.
The Observer discusses the biggest nursing strike in NHS history, which they say is going to take place before Christmas.
Mail on Sunday has a royal exclusive. It says Prince Andrew was left in tears when Charles told him he would never return to royal duties.
The Sunday Express focuses on the Prime Minister's plans to have an extra bank holiday next year for the King's coronation.
The Sunday Telegraph has the Chancellor's plans to halve pension relief for middle-class workers.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have a view on that one. The Mirror has an exclusive interview with a man who was handcuffed to a wall by Boy George in 2007. And that all comes, of course, ahead of Boy George being in I'm a Celebrity, which starts tonight.
Yes, he was sentenced for that, wasn't he? I seem to remember. Sun on Sunday focuses on a betting probe involving the three-line striker Ivan Toney.
So there you are, a lovely mix as ever of politics and royal stories and the odd scandal here and there. Sunday papers alive and well.
Oh, they are indeed. Let's see what anthropologist Mariana Hotter and political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, make of it all. Morning, you two. Nice to see you. Marianne, let's start with the Observer. Should we be looking at this nurses' strike?
Yes. So, this is going to be the biggest strike in the history of the Royal College of Nursing, likely this side of Christmas, which obviously there are huge patient backlogs, people waiting for operations, procedures. They may well not happen because the nurses are going to go on strike. And union officials, so these are figures from the Royal College of Nursing, from the union, saying since 2010, so since the Conservatives took power, experienced nurses' pay has fallen by 20% in real terms because it's been year after year of underinvestment in the NHS and lower than inflation pay increases.
But that applies to just about everybody in the country, doesn't it? We've all taken a hit in our pay in real terms.
So I think the thing that we have to remember is that it shouldn't be a race to the bottom. And yes, there are certain industries where there is a strong union, where, for example, the rail workers, they're always the ones who kind of get, wheeled out as like, what is it that they're asking for? The rest of us can't ask for that. But the thing is, that's a demonstration of why unions are important, because they can argue, lobby and organise a group of disparate workers so that they do get better pay and conditions.
But the
nurses...
nurses...
teachers and nurses do not go on strike easily.
No.
They're upset, they're quiet, and also I was talking to... So my son was in hospital last month, unexpectedly. They were absolutely amazing at the Lister Hospital in Stevenage, and really looked after us, from the receptionist at the GP all the way through to the people who met us at A&E and all the rest of it. But one of the nurses was saying, it's really difficult, but I never... It's really hard for us to talk about how difficult things are because we don't want to do a disservice to our colleagues because everybody is working so hard. We don't want to complain and we don't want to. She said the other thing, which I thought was really commendable. She said, I don't want my patients to worry even more because they think that we're tired or we're stressed or we might make mistakes. But the truth is, I was there for many hours. We are tired, we are stressed. Mistakes will be made because the system is collapsing.
If you're a patient, the last thing you want to see is that your doctor or nurse looks absolutely knackered.
Yeah, or is in tears.
Yeah.
And they are. Or they manage to make it to the end of the shift and then they go home, or they sit in their car and cry, or they just go, I can't do this anymore. And if you're up for retirement, you leave early, or you go, I'm going to go and work in Tesco's. Yeah. Because this isn't worth it. The impact on my family life, the impact on my mental health, and the impact on the patients, because I think one of the hardest things for people who are in caring professions, and this is true of carers, social workers, doctors, nurses, that whole range of jobs where you have a responsibility to look after someone who's in a vulnerable position. If you don't feel like you did the best job that you could for that person, it has huge psychological harm because it's this thing called moral injury, where
what on earth is going
I did everything I could.
What's going to happen? They're asking for a hefty pay rise, aren't they?
Yeah, so 15%.
Which is the biggest we've heard of in this. And that whilst you might argue they may well deserve that, absolutely, how is Rishi Sunak going to find the money to pay them at all?
Well, he's not, is the simple answer. But, it's a opening gambit, isn't it? They will reach an agreement, as they always do. It'll be much less than 15%.
Do we have to go through a strike first? Do we really have to make our nurses do that?
Well, I think it's every worker's right, I think, to withdraw their labour. But, as you said, it's the last thing that those in the medical profession want to do because they're trained to help their patients. The last thing they want to do is refuse to work. Yeah. But, as you say, there have been, in real terms, pay cuts effectively for the last 12 years. So, they've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. But at the same time, we'll come to it, the government, they're staring at an enormous £50 billion black hole in the nation's finances. So they're not going to get 15%, but there will be an agreement which hopefully won't be too low. And
it's going to...
reasonably agreeable.
Just before we move on, I just want to say that it won't affect A&E. No. So, they're not going to go on strike on A&E.
A&E is dysfunctional. We'll come to that.
Well, it might be dysfunctional. It may well be dysfunctional, but the nurses and staff in A&E will not strike when they're on those shifts, which says it all, doesn't it, about them? I think you have to listen when nurses strike more than anybody else. Kevin, to the Times and a bit of hacking.
Yeah, I mean, this was a classic Sunday newspaper investigation. It's been going on for months, I believe, with the Sunday Times and the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, looking at hacking for hire being carried out. Now, it doesn't accuse any particular organisations of paying for this, but there is hints as to where it may have come from. So it's private investigators linked to the City of London using an Indian-based computer hacking gang to target the likes of Philip Hammond, the former Chancellor. So he was allegedly targeted when he was dealing with the fallout of the Salisbury poisonings. Chris Mason, the BBC political editor, he was targeted apparently when word got out that he was going to be the next political editor, so they were looking into him. Michel Platini, when he was head of UEFA, the European football body. And it's an astonishing piece of work, but essentially what's been happening is shadowy private investigators have been hacking into people's emails, high-profile people's emails.
Who's hiring?
Well, so they don't specifically accuse, but if you look at, so for instance, we said Philip Hammond, Russia, Novichok poison, so you can probably get an idea. Qatar, critics of the Qatar World Cup have seen their emails hacked as well, so that gives you an indication, I think, as to who is pulling the strings here. But as I say, it's a remarkable piece of work, and it just shows that in this day and age when basically no one can really exist at that level, certainly, without access
their
to...
phone being hacked. Well, Liz Truss's phone was it? Apparently so badly hacked it's still locked away in a safe somewhere.
She's apparently had to change her number 4 times since July, according to the Mail on Sunday. So yeah, it is a remarkable and one worrying that this is going on.
I wonder whether we're going to go to a sort of Cold War version of the future where people, if they want to have a conversation, have to go and sit on a park bench and actually have a conversation face to face. And so the only thing on your phone is where you're going to meet, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that might not help you. In code, it'll have to be in code.
But then they're able to, it says here, you know, they can even get malicious software which would enable them to basically access your microphone on your phone.
To listen.
And use the camera on your phone as well. So if you're going to meet in the park bench, leave your phone at home because they can access that as well.
Right. OK, there you go.
Dear me.
I wonder if you know, you can buy those little pouches, can't you, that block the signal? I don't know if they really work, though.
Just turn them off. Turn your phone
just
off.
Wrap it. No, apparently if you have to take the battery out, and most modern phones you can't take the battery out now. If you just turn it off, it's still pinging a little signal.
Well, and even the boss of Microsoft, who am I thinking of? The famous...
Bill Gates.
He puts a little sticker over his laptop camera because even he knows that... And he was the boss.
Yeah.
He knows
if he's doing it,
if you've got a camera, you think it's switched off, it isn't. It may not be. People can hack in. Yeah.
Hello.
Somebody's watching us now.
You're right, Vladimir. How are you doing?
Oh, stop it.
No.
Well, watch me. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in going on here. Well, no, don't.
Pardon?
But you know what I mean? Nothing scandalous or salacious or sinister.
You always think that until it's used against you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, watch me when I charge you up in the kitchen and watch me cooking tea. What else have we got? I'll tell you what, let's have a look at an extra bank holiday, because this will cheer us up.
OK, so, good news. It's my birthday. We're going to have a bank holiday on my birthday.
On May the 8th?
Yep, that's the one. So, King Charles III is going to be coronated. Crowned. You know what I mean?
Did they say coronated in there?
No, they didn't.
No, I was going to say.
No, they checked what
a lot of people are saying coronated, and it's like...
Oh, are they?
Yeah, and it's like, no.
No, it's crowned.
Excuse me. Yes, so we're going to get an extra bank holiday in recognition of the historic occasion.
So that's 3 bank holiday Mondays in May.
Excellent.
Yeah, because they had talked about just moving the May bank holiday. But no, it's an extra one.
An extra one. Which is hugely important for productivity and economic growth.
Well, yeah, so considering how potentially damaging it can be to the economy, it's quite a big deal.
You can't have the first coronation in 70 years without having a day off to watch it.
No, I'm all for it.
But it's a day off the following, because it's on a Saturday, isn't it? Coronation.
So the coronation itself won't be on the 8th. You just get a holiday to, I don't know,
on
go
Monday.
For a picnic, have burgers and salad in the garden.
And I was just thinking of, you know, that the other story we were going to talk about, if there's just a moment of time, is Matt Hancock in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, apparently allegedly getting 400 grand to do it.
Apparently, yeah.
I was just thinking, if I'm a nurse considering striking at the moment, when I think he was a former health secretary during the pandemic crisis, when we were all encouraged to go out in our front doors and bang our saucepans to support the nurses, they must be feeling a bit pig sick that the former health secretary is just getting almost £500,000.
Absolutely. And, you know, the story says that he decided to do it because he realised he's not going to return to government. Well, if there was even the smallest chance of him ever returning to government, I think he's completely blown it by going on this. I mean, and you know, that's before we see the terrible trials that they have him doing. You know, the idea that somebody who's eaten unmentionable parts of a kangaroo's anatomy will end up back in the cabinet, I think, is for the birds.
Oh, well... Mind you, Nadine Dorris managed it, didn't she? She ended up back in the cabinet.
Yeah, but he's also done the SAS show on Channel 4. Apparently, he's just been filming that as well. So he's clearly made up his mind.
I think he's decided that, I mean, he's almost like he's working his way up to no longer being an MP, almost. You know, he's maybe go down the sort of Ed Balls route of becoming like a TV celebrity. You might see him on Strictly, who knows?
Very
hard.
What
I thought.
It's his high risk strategy, but he's only he's like 43, 44.
Yeah, he's not old, not old.
Well, there you are. He's got a whole new career ahead of him.
There you go, you see. Look, Kevin, Marianne, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you. We're going to stick with politics, actually, but on the other side of the pond, because just a few days before the polls close in America's midterms, the Republican Party seemed to be in a stronger position than ever to regain control of the House of Representatives.
But why is the party doing so well this time around? Well, political analyst Ronald Granieri joins us now to tell us more. A very good morning to you. Can you explain what the midterms are all about, first of all, to those of us who don't quite know how American politics works?
Of course. Good morning to all of you over there on the other side of the pond on this beginning of daylight savings time here in the United States. But the midterm elections, according to our calendar, every 2 years, the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election. So that's 435 members of the House of Representatives and 1/3 of the Senate. So that's what we do every 2 years on a rotating basis with the senators, that is. So these are, we have presidential elections every 4 years, and we have these congressional elections every 2 years. And so this is regularly scheduled time. And generally speaking, the first midterm elections after a presidential election, after a president's elected, usually don't go well for the president's party. Which is one of the things that the Republicans have been counting on after having lost the presidency in 2020. Now they're hoping to be able to get back some power in Congress, because right now the Democratic Party has a majority in both of the houses of Congress.
Does that leave President Biden? Because if he does as badly in the midterms as it looks as though he will, does he in effect then become a lame duck president for the last 2 years?
He certainly could. I mean, one of the problems with the how polarized politics have gotten in the United States is it's very difficult to get much done if you don't either have a working majority of your own party or at least some kind of bipartisan spirit. And we don't have much bipartisan spirit in the United States these days. President Trump discovered how difficult it could be when you lose your majorities in both houses he only lost majority in one house of Congress in the 2018 midterms. And that slowed down his agenda considerably. So this will be very difficult. Now, the other thing, though, is that even though presidents often do badly in these midterm elections, more often than not, presidents have been reelected to a second term. So this, for President Biden, it is an interesting thing, is that certainly losing control of Congress would not be very appealing, but then he could run against the Republicans when he runs for reelection in 2024 to say, think of all the things I would have done if only the Republicans hadn't been in the way. So one never knows exactly how it plays out in the long term, but in the short term, it would be very difficult. And there's also the very real possibility that a Republican majority in the House of Representatives might pursue investigations or even an impeachment of President Biden for political reasons, because apparently that's what we do these days in this country.
Yes, that's exactly what, more or less the comment I was going to make. That's what seems to happen all the time nowadays, never gets you anywhere. The thing that strikes us, and I know we're only watching from this side of the pond, so we get a sort of different flavour of your news, but, all of these old names and old faces, where's the young blood coming forward on either side?
I mean, that's an excellent question, and it's very difficult to find. That one of the interesting things about American politics, for better or for worse, is that the political parties as institutions are relatively weak. Even though they have a pull on voters, most of our politicians, especially in Congress, are essentially individual entrepreneurs. They're able to raise money, they're able to exercise influence and to attract support. And so as a result, you end up with a situation where if somebody wants to stay in Congress or wants to stay in the Senate, the party is not in a position to say, you really should consider retiring. They leave it up to the individual to decide, especially because the parties themselves are concerned that, well, if the well-known person retires, then they can't be sure that the replacement will be any better. So as a result, you end up with people who stay in office for quite some time. We have several septuagenarian senators. We even have a few octogenarians. And this is a longer-term problem, I could say, in American politics.
We've only got 20 seconds left. Can I just quickly ask you mentioned about Biden running again in 2024. He's not going to do that, is he?
Once again, he's the only person who can decide whether he does it or not. One wonders that in some ways, if these midterms go badly, that would be an argument against. But if these midterms go badly, that could also be an argument that the party would be concerned about opening up an internal struggle for his successor.
Okay.
We'll have to talk about that another time, I guess.
Well, we will, I'm afraid. Ronald Granieri, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Gosh, we thought our politics was getting a bit confused. But my goodness, there's such old names and faces. I mean, even Barack Obama looking old at the moment.
Yeah.
And he was the last bright young thing.
He was a bright young thing. Will we get another one? We shall have to see. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots coming up for you after the weather.
Well, the UK is looking particularly wet, I think, across southeastern areas this morning. There will be sunshine and heavy showers elsewhere. Here are the details.
So, quite a breezy end to the morning across the southwest of England. Sunny spells, but also a few showers, some of which could be heavy and thundery.
Meanwhile, across the southeast of England, thicker cloud is expected, giving some more persistent outbreaks of rain, which could give a bit of localised flooding.
Let's move on to South Wales. There's a better chance of some bright spells breaking through the cloud at times, although showers will never be far away and some of them will be a little bit hefty.
A band of organised showers are likely to work their way eastwards across the Midlands during the middle part of the day, so be prepared for some spray and standing water on the roads.
Now, across the northeast of England, the weather's looking quieter. Should be mainly dry. However, a grey, locally misty or foggy start, and there's still likely to be a lot of low cloud around.
Southern Scotland will be quite showery with only short-lived brighter breaks, although it will be breezy, so the showers should push through fairly quickly in the southern wind.
Now, a mixed bag of weather on the cards for Northern Ireland. It's going to be bright and breezy at times, but with the chance of the occasional shower.
So there you have it. Rain will clear from the southeast this afternoon, with eastern parts having clear spells this evening. Blustery showers will continue further west. And that's your weather today.
Monday on GB News. Join my new show, Bev Turner Today, from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is backing a fair, points-based system for immigration.
Morning to you. 7 o'clock, Sunday the 6th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And as you know, we are live across the whole of the UK on your TV, on your radio and online. So wherever you are, you can take us with you. Here are the top stories this morning.
Keir Starmer says his party will not support open borders and believes immigration is not the solution to solving the challenges facing the NHS. He's criticised the government for making short-term fixes and putting plasters over problems when it comes to the crisis facing the health sector.
The Prime Minister will bring back the Bill of Rights as a package of measures to stop migrants from crossing the Channel. GB News has an exclusive report from one of the unofficial migrant camps in Dunkirk, as many attempt to make that journey to the UK.
The climate summit COP27 starts later today. Rishi Sunak is going to use the platform to urge world leaders to act faster in transitioning away from fossil fuels to clean energy.
And is it too early to get into the festive spirit? Many of us have already visited Christmas markets or hung up our decorations at home. We'll be discussing why putting up those decorations or listening to Christmas music can actually transport you back to your childhood.
As ever, we want to hear from you this morning. Loads of views coming through already. We are going to run through plenty of them this hour. And if you want to join in, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Well, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has said immigration is not the best option to ease pressure within the NHS.
He believes that more funding towards training is needed before looking for overseas recruitment. And he says Labour does not support an open border.
Now, his comments came ahead of a protest planned by refugee charities outside the Manston Asylum Processing Centre in Kent later on today.
So joining us now is the editor of CapEx, John Ashmore. Hello, a very good morning to you. What's Keir Starmer up to, trying to appeal to the middle ground?
Yeah, I think immigration has long been a weak point for Labour politically, and I think what he's trying to do is, a bit like with the Tories on the NHS a few years ago, he's just trying to neutralise an issue that has been a real problem for his party. I think his opponents are obviously going to say, look, you were a staunch Remainer, not just a supporter, a second referendum Remainer, and that would have involved, or that did involve, you know, effectively open borders with the rest of the EU. So he's kind of on a bit of a hiding to nothing there. But yeah, I think he's trying to, yeah, as you say, paint himself as someone in the middle ground, a kind of sensible compromise sort of policy on immigration.
But it's interesting because he's tying in migration to the NHS in all of this. And he's saying, you know, immigration is not the answer to NHS staffing problems. We need to train more sort of homegrown staff, if you like. But he accuses the government of sticking plaster solutions. Well, training people up is going to take years. Therefore, you're going to need a sticking plaster solution in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, training nurses and training a doctor takes 7 years, nurses 3 or 4 years, I think, not including any time on the job. So, as you say, it's a long-term thing. I'm just looking at some of the numbers in the press release that Labour, or the interview that Keir Starmer gave. He said we want to train 7,500 domestic staff. Well, that's not actually going to touch the sides in terms of the NHS labour crisis. I mean, we're looking at almost 50,000 vacant posts just in nursing, midwifery and health visiting, not doctors or any of the other support staff. So I think we need to kind of get real about the scale of the problem. Obviously, immigration on its own is not the answer to anything, but it's neither is it to be ignored. You know, if people are there who want to work in the NHS, I think we ought to sort of welcome them. And I think most of the public, if you ask them, do you think people who come here to work for the NHS should be welcome? They would probably say yes.
Well, yes, certainly faced with those figures they would. But that's the problem, particularly with the NHS and probably other departments as well within government, is you need both. You need a short-term solution now because we're in a crisis, but you also need a long-term, sensible, agreed strategy, don't you?
You do, and I think that a lot of politicians are not really being 100% honest with the public about what the future looks like in terms of the health service. Labour acts as though it's purely a matter of funding. If the Tories had put a bit more money in, things would be better. I just don't buy that. The demand on the service is increasing so much because of the demographics of our population. We have a lot more older people. The NHS spends an awful lot of money basically keeping older people with a lot of what we call comorbidities, so basically illnesses, alive for longer. So in a strange way, that's a product of our amazingly longer lifespans and healthier lives. But the blunt point is we're just going to have to end up paying more tax or having a much faster growing economy, which is basically the argument Liz Truss was making in her very short premiership. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to afford this. In terms of sticking plasters, you're right, we can put a bit more money in, we can have the odd task force or anything. That's not going to deal with that underlying issue. One thing that is interesting from a Labour point of view is that Wes Streeting, who's the Shadow Health Secretary, is saying we are going to have to use the private sector to get waiting lists down. And in a way, it's only Labour who can say that. There's a kind of Nixon in China element where they're trusted enough on the health service to be able to come up with those kind of solutions.
It's interesting that all of this, and coming out now as it is, this is properly general election footing now, isn't it?
It does feel that way. There's a sort of more of a professionalism to the way that Labour are conducting themselves now. Even within Keir Starmer's own sort of reign as leader, I think the start was there was a lot of factionalism and the sense that he was trying to deal with infighting, getting rid of the Corbynites, basically. Now it feels quite polished and like they're trying to hit their key points. With this, as you said, Anne, like they're trying to pivot from something that's a weakness, immigration, to something that's a strength and tie them together. Yes, so they want to be talking about the NHS.
Keir Starmer clearly is trying to come out with these ideas first, so that even if the Tory government was thinking of these things anyway, it looks as though they've been put on the back foot. I think particularly of the phrase that Rishi Sunak used today in advance of him going out to Egypt. He said something about trying to turn Britain into a green or
green superpower.
Green superpower. Keir Starmer said almost exactly the same thing a couple of weeks ago, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that was a key part of his conference speech back at the end of September, was that, and in doing so, he was trying to say that, look, things like net zero decarbonising doesn't have to be this great poverty-inducing project. Personally, I'm quite sceptical about what that entails, but at least it was a way of him framing it as something a bit more positive. I don't think it matters that much, though, if politicians sort of slightly steal each other's policies. George Osborne did it all the time, I remember, during the coalition years. Boris was absolutely shameless in stealing other people's policies.
No, if something's a good idea, go with it.
Yeah, and voters don't really care at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think the bigger problem for the Conservatives is just that their reputation on the economy is shot to pieces now. Obviously, Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt can try and put it back together, but it feels like a bit of a damage limitation exercise at the moment.
OK. John, good to see you this morning. Thank you. Thank you.
Fascinating, isn't it? Do let us know what you think about that, because Penny in Watlington says, give the nurses a 20% pay rise, but take away their gold-plated pensions and make them pay for their own. 20% pay rise, that would be quite something, wouldn't it?
It would be something, but that sets a precedent, doesn't it? For
yes,
everybody else,
everybody
which
else
is the
would
problem.
go for it.
Peter in London says, Rishi Sunak's dad was an NHS doctor, so he should have some empathy with the health service, but he is quite rich, so he'd probably use his private healthcare instead. The nurses deserve a pay rise, and now they've voted to go on strike. Let's hope a settlement is found as soon as possible.
Yeah, let's hope a settlement is found.
I always was of the opinion that, if you were using private healthcare, then you sort of think, well, that's all well and good, because that's then taking pressure off the NHS. However, it's all the same staff, isn't it?
And
all
that's,
the consultants are all
that's
doing...
a problem. And if we've trained those consultants, how quickly can they go into doing private care? Somebody got in touch earlier saying...
Yes, here we go. It was Celia, I think, it says, once doctors are trained, they should be prevented from working privately for perhaps 5 years. Consultants should not be able to work 2 jobs. Operating theatres should work 24/7 to reduce waiting lists. Health doesn't keep a 9-to-5 agenda. Yeah, I sort of agree with that.
I think a lot of people would agree with that, but you also have to look upon the training of a doctor. It isn't a giveaway. It's not like a grant that we give them. They work while they train, and they work terrible, awful hours, and the NHS would collapse without them working while they're training. So it's not just a giveaway. Pam in Malden, hi there, Pam, says, we need a debate on what the National Health should pay for. It was set up originally to pay for health, but now it funds all sorts of things. And there are big debates to be had on that.
Yes.
Should IVF be on the NHS? Things that, if you want your ears pinned back or other sorts of, what do they call it, cosmetic surgery, should that be paid for by the NHS or not? You can get very upset in that sort of debate.
Let us know what you think, gbviews at gbnews.uk. Now, meanwhile, because all this is being tied by Sir Keir into immigration, which is obviously a huge debate, the Home Secretary is pushing for the biggest ever deal with France to tackle illegal migrants on the south coast.
The agreement, which the UK hopes to finalise in the coming weeks, would see an increase in French officers patrolling French beaches.
Well, meanwhile, official figures show that channel crossings have reached almost 40,000 this year. And Paul Hawkins has been to the French coast to speak to some of those about to make the dangerous journey.
This is one of the many unofficial migrant camps on the outskirts of Dunkirk. We were told by humanitarian workers they tend to be segregated. Afghans living down the tracks, Albanians a growing number but seemingly elusive. This one mostly Kurdish and mostly young men escaping war or persecution in Iraq.
I am Dana from Iraq. I was 40 years old. I work in Baghdad. When Saddam took me in jail and take one kidney for me in left side. But nobody need to say, yeah, you are Dana, you are Lay. Everybody asked to me, you are not this person. This person is dead in Iraq. But I am not dead, I am here. And no, I come here to France 2 weeks. I try go with boat to England.
You tried 3 times on the boats, and what happened?
He take me in the beach where I go to in the boat. Okay. There I come back. I not go inside the boat.
But you're still going to try?
Of course.
Why the UK? Do you want to work in the UK?
I like work. Everybody like work on merit, on make children.
What kind of jobs can you do?
That is my job.
So that's your forklift driver's license from Germany?
Yes, I work 2 years.
Okay.
I work very well.
Okay. And how many times will you keep trying on the boat?
I stay here. Or I go dead here, or I go in UK.
Okay.
I no have choice.
A 15-minute drive, or if you're a migrant, 2-hour walk away are beaches like this. Plage du Petit. 2-hour walk from the camp, where desperate people like Dana meet the people smugglers, but only during calm seas. Today wasn't that day. This boat looks like it's been deliberately torn, ripped, and we know that the authorities in France try to destroy the boats if they find them by stabbing them and shredding them with a knife. So quite possibly this boat was going to be used to cross the channel, but the authorities have got here first. Everyone here wants to get to the UK. Many have tried multiple times. A lot of Albanian men are now going on over on the boats. How do you feel about Albanian men being here? Because you're coming from Iraq, but Albania is a safe country.
Yes, I ask also for the Albanian why coming, saying we no have work there.
And are they going to the UK to get involved in crime or to work?
For Albania, there is work is number one. What thinking for?
The British people are scared of people coming over on boats. What would you say to them, to people who are scared?
I have to say for the people, I am sorry for this situation, but in onze land is problem mafia in my land. It's not a good government as England. British people have a right. That's scary for the people going there because give too much criminal.
This Kurdish family of 8 were standing up because most of their tents were full of water. They told me they were 20 minutes from Dover when they had to turn back on their last attempt. Among them, 8-month-old Mila. Rats are everywhere here. Disease is common. Life, especially in winter, difficult. One migrant told me he'd rather stay here than be deported to Rwanda if the government gets its way. But others said anywhere is better than these camps. The UK, attractive because the language is easier. There are jobs and some have family there.
There's this weird symmetry that 82 years ago, during the evacuation of Dunkirk, a flotilla of small boats left this French coastline for Britain. It was a moment of hope for us that as allies we would regroup and then come back to liberate the French in Western Europe. It's weird that 82 years later there's another flotilla of small boats leaving the French coast for Britain, and for some in those boats it's a moment of hope for them.
And it's that hope that the criminal gangs are exploiting. In the meantime, the boats keep coming. Paul Hawkins, GB News.
Oh dear, dear, dear. I mean, it's a difficult one. There's some sympathy out there from you and some who aren't very sympathetic. Jane says the sight of a small child and the report of that 8-month-old baby in the camp is horrific. Those parents are in a lovely and safe and culturally rich country. The treatment of their own children is criminal.
I don't think they'd be in that situation if they weren't pretty desperate, though.
But then you have to ask, the guy that Paul was interviewing who had a forklift licence from Germany, who said he'd worked there for 2 years, then why is he not still in Germany? Unless that's been lost slightly in translation. I don't know. But
Susan says, yes, some of the stories of the people in France waiting to come across to England are very touching. But we cannot put right all the world's injustices. Britain is unable to cope with non-selective immigration on this scale.
Frank says we should put them on a hovercraft and take them back to the French beaches where they are not capable of policing. Macron may shout, but let's be honest, if he defends the migrants, it would be a statement of condoning what is happening. It's very difficult, and it's as I was saying in the last hour, you either take a micro view and look at the individuals, as Paul was doing there, or you take a macro view and look at the impact on a country like the UK of lots of people coming over. And you somehow have to see both.
Yeah, and it's not just happening to us. It's
happening
to all of the countries. Pete says, Anne, stop being so pathetic about migrants. Remember British people, Indigenous Brits, the English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish people. This is our country. There's no such thing as an Indigenous Brit, is there?
Well, no. No, there isn't. I mean, half of us, if you do your genealogy, we're either sort of French or Viking. There are very few Angles left now.
And it's not being pathetic to just sympathise with the humanity of it, is it? Surely not.
No.
But I do agree that something's got to be done, because this situation can't go on.
It can't continue.
It's clearly not right.
On a brighter note, because Remembrance Sunday is coming up, of course. Ray, the retired submariner, says, can you please give a mention to all the submariners who will be celebrating their Remembrance Sunday all around the country? Of course we can. And those submariners who will be submarinated somewhere.
Submerged. Well, yeah, they'll be working, won't they? Bill in Stoke says, can we please wish my lovely wife Diana a happy 63rd birthday? She'll love you for saying that. Sorry, I should have thought before I read out the number, shouldn't I? But anyway, Diana, a very, very happy birthday from your loving husband, Bill.
Yeah, that's very nice. Now, let's turn our attention to the climate, should we? Because COP27 starts later today in Egypt. Rishi Sunak will be urging world leaders to move further and faster in transitioning away from fossil fuel. He's pledging to make the UK a clean energy superpower.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg has claimed that the event is actually greenwashing the whole issue, and she's not going to be attending. Meanwhile, Egyptian authorities have had to add additional security measures in Sharm el-Sheikh due to local protests.
Well, author of Why Climate Breakdown Matters, Professor Rupert Reed, joins us now. Good to see you this morning. What do you make of all of this? I mean, do you have any hope of COP27 actually achieving a great deal?
Very little. You know, we sort of play this game every year, don't we? We go into a new climate COP hoping that it's going to give us something real, maybe asking for this and that, saying they ought to do better on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and they ought to make bigger promises. But, well, as my young friend and colleague Greta Thunberg says, it's mostly just blah, blah, blah. And we can't go on like this. It's been going on like this for 26 years. So I was at Glasgow COP26 last year. I'm not going to be going to more COPs so far as I can see in the future. I think it's time for governments and leaders to get real. What would really be game-changing would be if instead of making more ridiculous promises that are not backed up by his actions, Rishi Sunak were to turn up in Egypt and to say, you know what, I'm sorry that we have failed, that we've failed to keep temperatures below the agreed safe international maximum, which is clearly now not going to happen. We're not going to keep temperatures below that maximum of 1.5 degrees of global overheat. I'm sorry that we failed. And if we were to do this incredibly refreshing and rare thing of actually admitting that we're starting from a standpoint of a catastrophic failure, that governments have catastrophically failed to keep their citizens safe, and that we're now moving into a dangerous terra incognita, a hot new world, then that would be the way we might actually be able to start getting somewhere. Otherwise, until that kind of point is reached, until we unite against the climate failure that there has been so far, I just don't see these COPs as meaning anything very much at all.
Politicians aren't going to do that, though, are they? They never admit their own mistakes, which may be, as you've probably just laid out there, may be the reason that we don't move on very fast. And Greta Thunberg has said herself she's not going because she thinks it's greenwashing the whole issue. What does she mean by that? Does she mean that countries are just box-ticking?
I think she means that. I think what she also means is that the corporate domination of this process has reached a troubling level, a very high number, for example, of fossil fuel lobbyists at these COP conferences. But, and, you know, I think the really crucial point is the first point that you made there, that politicians just don't do this. They just don't do the thing that I'm asking them to do. Or if they do it, it's vanishingly rare. But you know what? What people are really longing for at this moment in history is authenticity and truthfulness from their politicians to counter the kind of standard way that politicians behave. And when, on very rare occasions, you do get a politician who starts to cut through the norms and to be truthful, well, then you start to have a situation where the population can trust them. And that's, again, what people desperately want. They want to be able to trust their leaders. They want to be able to trust their media. They want to be able to trust commentators. And they really deserve that trust, right? We all deserve to be able to trust what we hear on the box, what we hear from our leaders. We deserve to be able to listen to what scientists say and know that they are telling us the absolute straight dope about the situation. It's the same throughout. There is a huge premium on truth and trust. So I think if any politician were brave enough, and this might start with some on the green side of the spectrum, for example, naturally, if any politician were brave enough to actually call it and to actually say, this COP process is basically pointless. We need something else. We need citizens to understand how at risk they are, and from the ground up to put pressure on politicians and everyone else to tell the truth relentlessly. If that were to happen, then that really would be an extraordinary game-changing moment. And I think the politicians that initiated that, if they dare to do so, would get enormous credit.
Look, we're almost out of time, but the problem is these are scare tactics. aren't they? And that never goes down well with the public. Don't you need to resonate with the public in a more positive way? I mean, things like, which works perfectly at the moment, you know, we need to improve energy security, and the way to do that is to have more green, renewable energy. Now, that's something people can latch onto and say, oh, yeah, I can see the benefit of that, rather than just sort of doing a very gloom and doom agenda, which people quite naturally, in a way, want to reject.
Stephen, you say it's scare tactics, but look, I work at the University of East Anglia alongside some of the world's leading climate scientists. They are scared. They're the people who really know about this, and they are scared. I think that we need to see what people actually feel as well as what people actually think about this. And then that's a basis for moving into real action. We need it all. We need to know where people are coming from and what they are feeling. And yeah, we need to know what to do about it. We need to know what kind of solutions are out there in terms of, for example, a real massive energy, renewable energy set of changes, and not, of course, the fossil fuels which our government are continuing to double down on. But it starts from truthfulness. That was the secret of what was achieved by Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion in terms of a wake-up call in 2019. It's needed again today. And on the back of that, on the basis of that, we can start to have real agitation for real change, including, yes, a massive renewables revolution.
OK, Rupert Reed, we've got to leave it there, but good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
What do you think of the idea of a renewables revolution? Maybe we need it. Maybe politicians aren't the right people to be running the country.
Maybe not. I think that possibly may be a well-supported point. Anyway, let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Coming up, Aidan McGee's got all the sport for you. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
On radio.
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
"7:29, morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne."
David in Newmarket, hi David, says Matt Hancock is my MP. It bothers me hugely that he is not fulfilling the duties he was elected for. The rest of it I can't give a flying flamingo about. He may be receiving 400 grand for being in the jungle, but he isn't the only one. I'll be amazed, though, if he is reselected to represent West Suffolk at the next election.
Yeah. I think his political days are over, but I think he knows that. That's probably why he's doing it, getting a bit of money in the coffers.
Yes.
Aidan McGee's here to take us through the biggest stories this weekend. Morning, Aidan.
Morning, how you doing?
I'm all right. We were talking the other week about Ivan Toney, weren't we? The sort of remarkable way he takes penalties.
He doesn't look at the ball.
Yeah.
He said, why do I look at the ball when the ball doesn't move? I know the ball, that's the one constant in this whole thing. The keeper can move, the net can blow, there can be noise from the crowd, but the ball isn't moving. I just look ahead, I decide where I'm going to put it, and I wait for the keeper to go, and I go the other way. And he has an impeccable record on penalties. But as of the last 24 hours or so,
He's the front page lead of The Sun on Sunday.
Yes, so he's in a bit of hot water. So his club Brentford have confirmed that he's assisting police with their, sorry, not the police, I shouldn't say that, the FA with his inquiries after some betting allegations. Now, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, the FA issued some guidelines. I was part of it as in my previous job. All journalists were briefed about how serious it can be in terms of sports people betting, particularly football. It applies across all sports, actually. But it's illegal in football terms to bet on things like transfers, on the results of matches, team selection, whether a manager's going to be sacked, that kind of thing, because they're all things that can be listed in a betting market, either on a betting exchange or just in the high street or online or somewhere. So it's a serious offence within football. There's no suggestion, though, that he's been engaged in any criminality. There's no suggestion of any match fixing or fixing the outcome of games, and there's also no suggestion that he's betted on his own team.
What is there a suggestion?
Well, no, it's his old team. It's his old team. Well, they haven't said which one. There are a couple. He's played for a couple of the teams. He's played for Newcastle. He's played for Peterborough. He's 26 years old. It could be something as innocent as maybe he placed a bet using a third party, maybe somebody, a friend or a relative, or maybe there's been a betting trend spotted. This isn't related to the case. I'm only speculating on the kind of thing it could be based on what the FA told me some years ago. But it could be somebody who's betting prolifically, who they found maybe shares a house with him, or it could be somebody who knows him, or it could be a distant relative even. So it's been investigated. My concern is that this has been investigated now. It's turned out from the Daily Mail report yesterday for 7 months. It's been ongoing. Brentford, his club, have decided not to comment, which is right and proper, I believe.
Yeah, but now it's made the front page of The Sun on Sunday. It becomes something that, he won't be able to shake off, even if it's entirely innocent.
Well, if it's been going on for 7 months, who's to say it won't go on for another 7 months? Also, it's a crucial week.
It's a horrible thing to have hanging over your head, not being able to...
Because what's happening on Thursday?
It's the England squad announcement, and he was called up for his first England squad last month. September, actually, for the Nations League games. He didn't get on the pitch, but he's very much in the plans. Rightly so, he's been playing brilliantly. He's got 8 goals in 13 games for a mid-table team, and so he deserves to be in there, and it was strongly fancied that he will be in England squad on Thursday. Now, the FA have known about this for some time. It didn't preclude Gareth Southgate from including him in his squad in September, so you would assume that even though it's out in the public domain, although that could make a difference, maybe he'll be picked again, but you wouldn't want it going on in the background in your head while it's going on.
No, it's not in the background anymore either.
This is the thing.
It's the front page lead of a Sunday newspaper.
This is the thing. And when it's the World Cup or when it's England, he will realise as soon as he's involved with the England squad, it's a different level of scrutiny. And if it's going on in the background, in his head even, it could even put him off. But as I say, this ban within football applies to players, officials, managers, staff. So it's a wide net. It could be someone, it could be maybe someone who's close to someone he knows. I mean, as I say, there's no suggestion of any criminality, but it's been going on for 7 months and it's a crucial week for him.
Yes.
And he's in great form and we'll maybe know more about it later in the week. There's been some great games to look forward to as well today.
Such as?
Chelsea-Arsenal. So we've had this situation where Mikel Arteta was really struggling as a manager to convince his players to believe in him. This documentary came out a few months ago, back in the summer, an Amazon documentary where it was backdated. It was filmed maybe a year or so, or 8 months or so before, but it was the way he dealt with this player, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who was a top player, but he was turning up late for training, turning up late for matches. He made an example of him, and it's a really big thing when you're struggling as a manager to kick out your best player, because he said, look, you're not buying into our culture. You're a bad influence on the young players. He's going up against Aubameyang today at Chelsea. How keyed up is Aubameyang going to be to maybe stick 2 fingers up to his old manager? So that's a little bit of spice into what was already a decent game. West Ham play Crystal Palace in the London derby. Tottenham faced Liverpool as well. Jurgen Klopp made some interesting comments on Friday about Qatar. He said it was a journalist's fault for not calling out FIFA on this.
And it's not. Did call it out at the time.
I thought they did. There's Panorama. There was a Sunday Times. Sunday Times were the ones who uncovered the purchase of votes by FIFA.
It's been the talk of the mainstream media for ages.
Football caused this problem. It was FIFA who gave the World Cup to Qatar. For Jurgen Klopp to say that it was a journalist's fault for not calling it out. If I say I don't agree with it, well, it doesn't carry much weight. If he comes out and says he disagrees with it, and Jose Mourinho does it, and Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, and all manner of other football people, it makes a difference. And they didn't. They were very quiet about it. They'll be moaning, and this time in a few weeks' time after Christmas, when the scheduling gets changed, or our game's been played 24 hours later than we want it to. Well, why haven't they said anything about the fact that there's a World Cup in the middle of a season? We've never seen this before. You're asking players to... I mean, I went... QPR looked very tired yesterday, I have to say. We're going to lose because we've had to condense fixtures before the World Cup, and we don't resume until Boxing Day. And yes, we're talking about really highly tuned elite physical athletes here. You ask anybody in the game, the biggest imposition on them is the number of hours of sport they play. Less is more sometimes.
Yeah, indeed. Less is certainly more... with you, Aidan, this morning, because that's where we have to leave it.
OK. We'll mention Chantal Cameron in the boxing later on, yeah?
Yes. We will do. OK, for now, thank you very much indeed. It's 7:35, much more still to come, including a look at the papers.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
At 7:39, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Steve Dinnan. As you can tell, it's time to go through the papers this morning. Joining us today, anthropologist Mariana Hotter and political editor at HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning, you two.
Hello.
Kevin, let's talk about pension tax reliefs in the Telegraph, Sunday Telegraph.
Yeah, so as we know, November 17th is D-Day, really, as far as Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are concerned. We'll get the autumn statement, how they're going to fill this £50 billion black hole, and basically everything's up for grabs. So between now and then, every day, the papers are going to have some other money-making wheeze, really, for the government. And this is the one thing that is under consideration, is basically at the moment you get tax breaks to encourage you to put into your pension pot. What they're talking about doing is cutting that relief so that you won't basically get as much benefit, but it costs the government less money, and it raises £10 billion, which obviously, if you're looking
That's fairly handy,
that
isn't
is
it?
a lot of money for them. So, but the interesting thing is that George Osborne tried something similar back when he was Chancellor and ended up ditching it because he was told Tory MPs just won't wear it. So again, I think
Well, it's not a very Tory thing to do.
Well, it's not. You're supposed to encourage self-sufficiency and saving for your retirement, etc. And it would be targeting better off people who you would think would be more likely to be Conservative voters. So anyway, it'll be interesting. I think what this indicates is that it's not going to be as simple as Jeremy Hunt standing up on the 17th of November and saying, right, this is what we're going to do, and then it gets done. There's going to be an awful lot of political trouble
well,
for
aren't we told that
potentially.
Labour are going to push for a debate on absolutely everything?
Yeah, exactly. Because what they want to do as well is they want to get votes, the Tory MPs' votes on the record, voting for tax rises, public spending cuts, so they can go into the next election and say, well, your local MP voted to put up your taxes and cut your NHS or whatever. And, so it's not going to be plain sailing by any manner of means. So at the moment, Rishi Sunak, he's the latest Prime Minister. There's a little bit of a honeymoon period. I think it's more or less over now.
I think it is.
But it's going to get really, really tough for him politically, I think, trying to get this stuff through because,
The only thing you would say is if Labour are going to push for a debate on absolutely everything that they put forward, Labour themselves have got to come up with strategies to sell. They can't just oppose in this situation. Surely they've got to sort of start their general election campaigning and say, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that.
I would love to see, Anne, a version of our politics where, in good faith, if the opposition party go, actually, that's an all right plan, we should allow them, they should have the confidence to say, yeah, OK, I reckon maybe that would work and we would support that because we think it's probably in the best interests of the country or people in lower tax brackets, what have you, rather than it always being this adversarial thing where it's kind of point scoring against the other team rather than actually trying to work together towards something better. I know I sound like a naive idiot.
No, I think people are absolutely fed up with this point scoring.
Well, and it doesn't work. The people who lose out are us. The people who lose out are the people watching them all braying in the House of Commons, just going, that does not represent me, that isn't in my best interests. this is supposed to be a sort of democratic representation of what's
there are a lot
what's
of
good for
people
us.
watching right now who pay into a private pension scheme and therefore benefit from the tax relief you get for it, or who have been doing so in the past. What do you think? Do you think it's part-time? If you can afford a private pension, maybe you should be able to afford to pay a bit more tax on it.
Yeah, so if you earn more than £50,000 a year, you currently get 40p tax relief on contributions. That would be reduced to 20p, possibly, in this scheme. So it would just be a flat rate. No matter what you earn, you get 20p tax relief instead of getting more. And I sort of think, I've got to say, the money's got to come from somewhere. Is it a bad idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about tax rises is that
it's not going to cost us. It's not going to cost us more. It's just going to mean there's going to be less going into the pension pot.
Exactly. Yes, your pension will be
smaller. So we're not feel it now.
Yeah, specifically for the people who probably have enough sort of financial flexibility that they are planning ahead, so that the argument is they can afford to have a little bit less in that big fat pension pot. The thing that's really important is that the people who are on lower incomes, who are kind of living to the end of the pay packet and kind of going, crikey, I've got through this month, I need to just get through next month or to the end of the week or whatever it is, those people are the ones who are going to be absolutely screwed in later life because they don't have a pension and they're relying on whatever the state might be able to afford to give them.
Yeah, the
and
only thing I would
that
say
is like a time bomb waiting to happen.
Not
That's
everybody
the thing that
who's
we
got
actually
a private
need to
pension has a big fat pension pot. Some people have, chronically small amounts that will actually hardly pay anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, and if you're not careful, you pay tax on that too.
Yes. Well, I have to say, Luke Nash has been in touch and said, "Well said, Mary Ann."
Oh, thanks. That doesn't happen very often,
No,
does it?
No, it doesn't.
Thanks,
so there
Luke.
you go. Mary Ann, let's have a look at the front of the Sunday Telegraph and looking at our NHS and ambulances in particular.
Yeah, speaking of where we might want to spend the money that we might be able to raise from clever tax... Clever, I don't mean sneaky clever, I mean, well-considered, smart tax decisions. Some patients have had to wait up to 2.5 days for an ambulance. Wow. It is extraordinary. There's another...
How can that actually... But they can't... What's the point in sending one 2.5 days later?
Well, at that point, you think... I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? A Category 2 call, which is something as serious as a suspected heart attack or a stroke that has been assessed, triaged by the call handler, that's classed as a Category 2. That's not Category 1 anymore. That's Category 2. And you're supposed to have a response time of 18 minutes. Some people have had to wait 17 hours in the southwest and southeast coast waiting for an ambulance. And some people, you pick up the phone to dial 999 to even just get through to someone, to speak to them. The longest call was waiting 52 minutes to have the call answered. Ooh. And the thing is...
That must be very rare, though, surely.
But it should never happen.
No, it should never happen.
Because you don't know whether that's your child choking.
Yeah.
You don't know whether that's someone who's literally dropped down and is turning blue-coloured white.
So what's causing this problem?
More than 10 years of austerity, massive chronic underfunding. The fact that one of the other problems is a kind of blockage in the system. So paramedics can't offload their patients into A&E departments because A&E departments can't get patients who need to be admitted into wards because the wards are full of... That's the other thing that's in this article. Only 2 in 5 patients who are ready to be discharged from hospital are able to go home at the point they are clinically able to because there isn't the care in place for them to be looked after.
It's what they call bed blocking.
Yeah, but bed blocking makes it sound like someone got their elbows out going, no, I'm not going home. Literally, you can't go home because you've just had a hip replacement and no one is there to look after you. Yeah. And so the knock-on impact is that people are dying. 50,000 people from heart attacks and strokes since the pandemic because the ambulance doesn't come. And that is extraordinary. If we ever thought we were moaning about GPs, if you ever thought, oh, actually, it's all right because I've got some money, I could pay to go private to have my earwax removed or to go and see someone about my fungal toenail or my asthma or whatever it is. Sorry, I know people are having their breakfast. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. But, I mean, that isn't... Or even to go private to have you, like, a knee surgery or something like that. There is no private equivalent of calling 999.
No,
and if you really need a wake-up call about how bad things are and how much we should probably be all on the streets going, this is not OK, this is it. A loved one next to you at the breakfast table chokes on their Weetabix, no one is coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality. Isn't that disgusting and grim and depressing?
It's certainly grim and depressing. We've got to leave it there, sadly.
Oh, sorry.
Kevin and Mary-Anne. Can we end on a happier note next time?
I'll try your best.
But we will catch up with you in the next hour.
Now it's 7:49. 2/3 of Brits are planning on cutting back this Christmas as a result of the rising cost of living.
Now, just 7 weeks left until the big day. How are small businesses being impacted by all of this? I should say.
Our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper is at the Knutsford Makers Market for us. And it's not quite busy yet. What's going on there, or what will be going on there later today, Sophie?
Well, we are quite early here at the minute. Stallholders are just getting set up. So this is, as you say, the last makers market in Knutsford now until Christmas. But this is something that takes place across the entire Northwest. They have one in Preston, they have one in Warrington, they have one in Stockport. It's a real big thing that allows local and small businesses the chance to reach their local communities with their product. Of course, we are fast approaching Christmas, and this is the last one now, so it's the last opportunity for people in the community to come to Knutsford and purchase some of the wares that will be on offer a little bit later today. But you know what? People are really going to be cutting back this Christmas as a result of the cost of living crisis. So to tell me a little bit about that, I'm joined now by Eric Jackson, who's an artist and stall holder here. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell me a little bit about how you think Christmas is going to be affected by the cost of living crisis. I'm just going to get you to take another quick step in so the viewers at home can see you, if that's OK. Yeah. That's nice. Tell me how your Christmas and your small business is going to be affected by the cost of living crisis.
Well, it's difficult to tell at the moment because it's only just started cranking up for Christmas. The real test will come, I don't know, in about a month's time. So far, so good, actually, for me. But I know, anecdotally, that some people are struggling, some stallholders, and obviously shops are because of the heating costs and things like that. But on a personal level, so far, it's been good for me. But then again, ask me in a month's time, that's when it'll really kick in, I think.
Of course, this isn't the first test that small businesses have had. Obviously, they had the pandemic to contest with, and a lot of small businesses now, I think it's 23% in a recent survey, said they felt they may not make it to the end of the financial year. How does it make you feel? I know you say that you may be in a better position than others, but how does it make you feel to know that other small businesses are really struggling?
Well, it's sad. It's sad because the knock-on effect, to me, if other people are struggling and people aren't coming out, will be that the markets are degraded and the high street's degraded. So it's, you know, it may be okay for me personally, but that can only last so long if other people are struggling. It benefits me if everybody's doing well.
And in terms of small businesses, these small businesses that are struggling, what advice would you give to the general population now that we're coming up to Christmas about perhaps shopping small, shopping locally?
Well, I would never be that arrogant to say that I think they're learning how to shop locally. I think for years everybody's gone to hypermarkets and out of town shopping centres, but in recent years, I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years now, and the shift towards buying locally and coming to markets has been incredible. 10 years ago, there was no market culture, especially in the Northwest, but it's phenomenal now. I mean, you mentioned 5 places before with markets. I mean, there's scores of them, actually, and little ones in little villages and towns. So I think people have bought in to shopping locally in markets. They're incredible. It's like being in France now.
And finally, tell me, obviously, there's not really that much going on right now, but tell me a little bit about what we could expect here in Knutsford today.
Chaos. I mean, we always say, let the mayhem begin. And, if there are hundreds, thousands of people here. That's what we want. And the weather helps. The weather's beautiful today. So I'm expecting a good day. This is one of the best markets in the Northwest. This and Treacle Market in Macclesfield, that's phenomenal. But this is up there in the top 5.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Eric. Of course, this is, as I say, the final Makers Market in Knutsford until Christmas. So I think the real message is for people to come down and to really support the local businesses.
Absolutely. Sophie, thank you very much indeed. Meanwhile, John doesn't want to be reminded of Christmas at the moment till the very last minute because we've got 8 grandchildren. The Christmas tree won't be going up until the first week of December.
I think it's nice to be reminded of Christmas early. Why not? It depends how it makes you feel, I suppose.
Yes. It's meant to be a sort of reminder of childhood, apparently, if you'll listen to the Christmas carols and all that.
Apparently that's why it makes us feel good. It reminds you of your perfect idyllic Christmas when you were a child. If indeed you had that sort of childhood.
Yes. The good old days when Grandma, even when we were about sort of 6 or 7, Grandma always gave us a bottle of woodpecker cider.
Yeah, woodpecker cider. That was wicked stuff.
Oh, yes. Good old Grandma. Anyway, look, we're back in a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere. All the top stories heading your way after a look at the weather.
Well, the UK is looking particularly wet, I think, across southeastern areas this morning. There will be sunshine and heavy showers elsewhere. Here are the details.
So, quite a breezy end to the morning across the southwest of England. Sunny spells, but also a few showers, some of which could be heavy and thundering.
Meanwhile, across the southeast of England, thicker cloud is expected, giving some more persistent outbreaks of rain, which could give a bit of localised flooding.
Let's move on to South Wales. There's a better chance of some bright spells breaking through the cloud at times, although showers will never be far away and some of them will be a little bit hefty.
A band of organised showers are likely to work their way eastwards across the Midlands during the middle part of the day, so be prepared for some spray and standing water on the roads.
Now, across the northeast of England, the weather's looking quieter. Should be mainly dry. However, a grey, locally misty or foggy start, and there's still likely to be a lot of low cloud around.
Southern Scotland will be quite showery with only short-lived brighter breaks, although it will be breezy, so the showers should push through fairly quickly in the southern wind.
Now, a mixed bag of weather on the cards for Northern Ireland. It's going to be bright and breezy at times, but with the chance of the occasional shower.
So there you have it. Rain will clear from the southeast this afternoon, with eastern parts having clear spells this evening. Blustery showers will continue further west. And that's your weather today.
Monday on GB News. Join my new show, Bev Turner Today, from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is backing a fair, points-based system for immigration.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 6th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So whatever you're up to today, you have to head out the house. You can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Sir Keir Starmer says his party will not support open borders, and he believes that immigration is not the solution to solving the challenges facing the NHS. In fact, he's criticised the government for making short-term fixes and sticking plaster over problems when it comes to the crisis facing that health sector.
The Prime Minister will bring back the Bill of Rights as a package of measures to stop migrants from crossing the Channel. GB News has an exclusive report from one of the unofficial migrant camps in Dunkirk, as many try to make the journey here.
The climate summit COP27 kicks off later today. Rishi Sunak will use the platform to urge world leaders to act faster in transitioning away from fossil fuels to clean energy.
And just how quickly do you want to get into the festive spirit? Well, the Christmas markets are already up and running, apparently. Perhaps you put the decorations up already. We're going to be talking why doing that, or even listening to Christmas songs, can transport you back to your childhood.
And apparently that's the reason it gives us the feel-good factor. It makes you think of those idyllic childhood Christmases that hopefully you had, or at least you watched on telly.
Well, you didn't have to think about cooking the dinner.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you have to worry about all of that.
Up, or how to avoid the family rows.
Oh,
didn't worry about those things, did you?
Well, if you've got any thoughts on that, let us know. Or anything else you want to talk about this morning, GB Views at gbnews.uk.
A London immigration removal centre has seen some violent disturbances during a power cut. It's understood a group of detainees left their rooms armed with weapons.
Now, nobody was injured, and the Harmondsworth removal centre says those who are responsible will be held to account.
Well, joining us now is GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Morning, Mark. Yes, I mean, you've been on top of this for such a long time. What went wrong just because of a power cut?
Well, I think tensions are always running high at the immigration removal centre because this is the last link in the chain, if you like, before those people are removed from the UK. It's a mix of failed asylum seekers, other immigrant offenders, and of course foreign nationals who have been jailed in this country for various criminal offences and have been deemed not to be in the public good, or at least their stay is not conducive to the public good, so they are being deported. So it's a mix of these people right at that end stage of being removed. So not the happiest of places anyway, regardless of what the conditions might be like. And we've had various reports over the years about Harmondsworth and other detention centres suggesting that conditions are not great in there. There was a power outage. That power was out for some time. We're told then that a group of individuals within Harmondsworth armed themselves with makeshift weapons went into one of the central courtyards within this facility, and there was scenes of disturbances and violence for quite some time. The Metropolitan Police Territorial Support Group, these public order trained officers, were brought in to help, as was the Prison Services National Public Order Unit as well. So they've got that situation now under control. They're in the process of farming all the people that were in Harmondsworth out to other detention removal centres. But Robert Jenrick, who is the Immigration Minister, says there were unacceptable levels of violence in this facility. And he's assuring the public that these people will be kept secure as they're put off to other secure facilities prior to the transfer out of the country.
But it's just another blow to the system, isn't it, Mark? I mean, there's been protests outside Manston, that processing centre as well, which has been at the centre of so much controversy in the last week. So it's just yet another blow to an already strained system.
Yeah, they are symptoms of the growing crisis within immigration, particularly the asylum system that, of course, the Home Secretary herself has described as broken. And really that's because of the very significant numbers that are coming across the English Channel. The government has been very lucky indeed that over the last week or so we've had very poor weather conditions in the Channel, so it's just not been possible for these criminal gangs to push the small boats off from France, and as a result that's enabled them to try to make an impact on the very big numbers who were at Manston, up to 4,000 at one point. Now this is a processing centre. It's only ever been designed to be a facility that you're sent to for a maximum of 24 hours, where your fingerprints and other biometric details are taken, where you're interviewed briefly, and where you're then medically assessed and sent off to interim accommodation, which of course, as we know, controversially, are all these hundreds of hotels right up and down the country. But you're right, Manston continues to be a source of some concern. There is expected to be a protest from refugee charities and other groups later today outside that facility, something else that the police will have to try to police to make sure that that goes off without a hitch.
OK.
And the politicians don't seem to be able to do very much about it yet, even though they keep saying they are. Because the Home Secretary is pushing for what they are calling the biggest ever deal with France to tackle illegal migrants on the south coast.
Yeah, the agreement, which the UK hopes to finalise in the coming weeks, would see an increase in French officers patrolling beaches.
Meanwhile, official figures show that Channel crossings have reached almost 40,000 this year. Our reporter Paul Hawkins has been to the French coast to speak to some of those making the dangerous journey.
This is one of the many unofficial migrant camps on the outskirts of Dunkirk. We were told by humanitarian workers they tend to be segregated. Afghans living down the tracks, Albanians a growing number but seemingly elusive. This one mostly Kurdish and mostly young men escaping war or persecution in Iraq.
I am Dana from Iraq. I was 40 years old. I work in Baghdad when Saddam took me in jail and take one kidney for me in left side. But nobody need to say, yeah, you are Dana, you are Lay. Everybody asked to me, you are not this person. This person is dead in Iraq. But I am not dead, I am here. And no, I come here to France 2 weeks. I try go with boat to England.
You tried 3 times on the boats, and what happened?
He take me in the beach where I go to in the boat.
Okay.
There I come back. I not go inside the boat.
But you're still going to try?
Of course.
Why the UK? Do you want to work in the UK?
I like work. Everybody like work on merit, on make children.
What kind of jobs can you do?
That's my job.
So that's your forklift driver's license from Germany?
Yes, I worked 2 years.
Okay.
I work very well.
Okay. And how many times will you keep trying on the boat?
I stay here, or I go dead here, or I go in UK.
Okay.
I no have choice.
A 15-minute drive, or if you're a migrant, 2-hour walk away are beaches like this. Plage du Petit. 2-hour walk from the camp where desperate people like Dana meet the people smugglers, but only during calm seas. Today wasn't that day.
This boat looks like it's been deliberately torn, ripped, and we know that the authorities in France try to destroy the boats if they find them by stabbing them and shredding them with a knife. So quite possibly this boat was going to be used to cross the channel, but the authorities have got here first.
Everyone here wants to get to the UK. Many have tried multiple times.
A lot of Albanian men are now going over on the boats. How do you feel about Albanian men being here? Because you're coming from Iraq, but Albania is a safe country.
Yes, I ask also for the Albanian why coming, saying we no have work there.
And are they going to the UK to get involved in crime or to work?
For Albania, there is work is number one. What thinking for?
The British people are scared of people coming over on boats. What would you say to them, to people who are scared?
I have to say for the people, I am sorry for this situation, but in our land is problem mafia in my land. It's not a good government as England. British people have a right. That's scary for the people going there because give too much criminal.
This Kurdish family of 8 were standing up because most of their tents were full of water. They told me they were 20 minutes from Dover when they had to turn back on their last attempt. Among them, 8-month-old Mila. Rats are everywhere here. Disease is common. Life, especially in winter, difficult. One migrant told me he'd rather stay here than be deported to Rwanda if the government gets its way. But others said anywhere is better than these camps. The UK, attractive because the language is easier. There are jobs and some have family there.
There's this weird symmetry that 82 years ago, during the evacuation of Dunkirk, a flotilla of small boats left this French coastline for Britain. It was a moment of hope for us that as allies we would regroup and then come back to liberate the French in Western Europe. It's weird that 82 years later there's another flotilla of small boats leaving the French coast for Britain, and for some in those boats it's a moment of hope for them.
And it's that hope that the criminal gangs are exploiting. In the meantime, the boats keep coming. Paul Hawkins, GB News.
It's such a difficult subject, actually, when you really look into it. Jan's been in touch. Morning, Jan. And, you know, you raise a point that I think a lot of people will resonate with. She says, I have no objection to immigrants, but they should apply through legal channels. Our own homeless, thousands through no fault of their own, are living on the streets in the cold and get no help. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
I think what also upsets a lot of people is that when they do come over and land from the small boats and are taken into various different sort of detention or processing centres, that's where legal aid seems to get stuck into the mix. And they have all claim all sorts of legal rights that I don't think they even knew about before they set off. And you just get the sense sometimes that the lawyers are, I was going to say enjoying it, but
milking it,
yeah. The lawyers are making life difficult. Sometimes they're doing it for political reasons. That's what they want to do. They want to extend the process. Or sometimes maybe they're just milking it. But they seem to make it all worse because clearly These people are still going to try and cross the channel, as you saw, still determined to do so for whatever reason. But when they do get here, they should be processed much more efficiently for humanitarian reasons, if nothing else, let alone financial reasons.
Anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. GBViews, gbnews.uk. 13 minutes past 8. Let's bring you up to date. And Rishi Sunak is travelling to Egypt today for COP27 after previously ruling out going. In a statement, the PM called the fight against climate change fundamental to our future and said we need to move further and faster to transition to renewable energy.
The government could revive the British Bill of Rights in a bid to tackle the number of migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats. The legislation would give the UK courts supremacy over the European Court of Human Rights, preventing judges in Strasbourg interfering in the government's Rwanda policy, for instance. The bill was apparently shelved by Liz Truss, but the Justice Secretary, or at least the new Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, said its return would end the abuse of UK laws.
At least 38 people have been injured in an apartment fire believed to have been caused by an electric scooter in New York. The video shows firefighters rescuing people from the 20th floor of the building. 2 people are in a critical condition, 5 others seriously injured. The New York Fire Department says it was the 200th fire caused by a lithium battery in the city this year.
In the sprint for the midterms, the biggest names in American politics came to Pennsylvania in an effort to tip the vote in their favour. Joe Biden and Barack Obama campaigned for the Democratic nominee, John Fetterman, and Donald Trump was showing his support for the Republican candidate and TV personality, Dr. Mehmet Oz. And this comes after Mr. Trump teased that he's actually thinking of running for president again.
The PM has announced an extra bank holiday to mark the King's coronation next year. The holiday will take place on the 8th of May after the coronation on the Saturday, so it will be 3 bank holiday Mondays in May. Rishi Sunak says he looks forward to seeing people come together and celebrate to pay tribute to King Charles III. Now, the UN Climate Summit, COP27, starts later on today, and Rishi Sunak, who has now decided he will go, will be urging world leaders to move further and faster in moving away from fossil fuel. He says the UK needs to be a clean energy superpower.
Well, as critical climate talks then do get underway, the World Health Organization has issued a pretty grim warning that the climate crisis is increasing illness and death at an increasing pace, with hundreds of millions of people already affected.
Well, let's talk to Professor of Geopolitics, Professor Klaus Dodds from the Royal Holloway University in London, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for being here. I mean, geopolitics in all of this is the sort of area that we don't talk about, and yet is crucial to how these sort of summits, and indeed tackling the whole crisis, will have to work.
Yeah, I think so, because compared to last year when we gathered in Glasgow for COP26, I mean, one key geopolitical factor that's really been paramount is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And when you're dealing with a multinational global issue like climate change, you need cooperation, you need goodwill, you need people, for example, agreeing to commitments and sticking to them. But if Russia and others can't speak to one another, that makes it really hard to do that kind of vital diplomatic work.
I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? We do sense that there are some countries in the world at the moment who just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, for example, that you often get polling on climate change scepticism, and Russia often comes out at the top of the table. I mean, Russia is not the only issue, by the way, to be very clear. I mean, climate change scepticism is widespread. But even, for example, in countries where climate change activism is fairly run-of-the-mill, I mean, you've still got issues about how you persuade people to treat it with a real degree of, in a sense, urgency. Whereas in other countries, such as Pakistan, that have suffered catastrophic flooding, then, of course, you probably don't need to be quite so persuaded that global warming has real-world consequences.
So we can see from what you said, something like COP is important in that it gets the big players together. Diplomacy can take place. However, it gets very frustrating that, you know, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk afterwards.
Yeah, so this is a common complaint of climate change activists. So Greta Thunberg will say, I'm not attending because I'm fed up of all the, what she described, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's important to bear in mind that climate change doesn't exist in splendid isolation. It takes on other issues like energy, finance, public health. These are really complex issues, and countries have very different capabilities, very different capacities to adapt. And in the end, it often comes down to money.
Is China going to COP27?
So China will be represented in COP27.
Because I know that we'll get a lot of reaction from people watching right now who'll say, until huge countries, huge polluters like China actually do something, what's the point of us bellyaching about it?
Yeah, so China and the United States are two of the biggest global emitters. But on the other hand, if you think about the role that China plays in the global economy, an awful lot of work that China does is really providing manufactured goods for the rest of the world. So one of the things, if we're doing a kind of carbon audit, is to think about how we export or outsource that kind of activity to other countries. So it's easy always to point the finger and say, well, some countries are, in a sense, more complicit within climate change than others. But in the end, this is really a global problem.
I see. That's very interesting. That's very... So, in effect, you're saying, we outsource sort of bad carbon...
Dirty stuff.
Dirty stuff to China, but they moan that they're being dirty.
Well, I mean, to give another example, if you think about, often we talk about plastics and recycling. Where does that end up? Well, a lot of it ends up elsewhere, where you and I and others don't necessarily track and trace. So my point really is that if we're auditing this kind of behaviour, it actually very quickly becomes complicated and it doesn't map neatly onto one country as opposed to another.
But that then also highlights, I hope this is all sounding very negative, but it also highlights how we were talking to one guy earlier on who says, that he's not going. He says more needs to be done now. This is an urgent problem and there needs to be urgent solutions. But what you're highlighting with the complexity of all of this is, in fact, there can't really be urgent actions because everything has a consequence. And if we take urgent action over here, in a way, it's a bit like offsetting, isn't it? We've got to move as a globe, and that is subsequently going to be slow.
Well, let me give you a positive news story, which is around clean energy generation. I mean, for anybody watching and listening of a certain age, it would seem quite remarkable that in 30 years the UK's energy mix is unrecognisable to where it was in the 1980s. There is a clean energy revolution going on, and it's really important to say much of that is being led in countries like China and the United States. Now, one of the reasons that's happening is because the climate crisis is being reframed. It's being reframed in two ways. One is as an energy security issue, which I think has more immediate purchase.
It's really concentrated the brain.
It's concentrated the brain. When the lights go out, that's one way of thinking about things with a certain urgency. The other thing it's worth bearing in mind is that these are business opportunities. So America has an opportunity to become a clean energy superpower, a claim that, of course, that Rishi Sunak has also latched upon. China also is a huge generator and supplier of clean energy infrastructure and generation itself. So change is happening, and it's happening fast. The challenge is whether it's happening fast enough to cut emissions to what scientists are recommending to keep the 1.5 degrees target alive.
OK, Klaus Dodds, really good to talk to you this morning.
It's nice to end on something positive too, thank you. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting, though, how we need something to focus on that affects us directly?
Oh, absolutely. But the scientists said it years ago, the lights will go out, ultimately, and maybe we didn't believe them, maybe we didn't do enough, but certainly now, with the threat of the lights going out, maybe for 3-hour blackouts, worst-case scenario this winter, it really does get you thinking, doesn't it? We've got to do something about energy security.
Well, look, don't go anywhere. Coming up, Stephanie's going to be here, because we're going to be having a look ahead to tonight's I'm a Celebrity.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
.25 morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, tonight, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here will return for, can you believe, its 22nd series, as the first 10 campmates enter the jungle. Here is a little reminder, just in case you really wanted it, of who's taking part.
I'm Boy George.
I'm Scarlett Douglas.
I'm Chris Miles.
I'm Sue Cleaver.
Hi, I'm Mike Tyndall.
Hi, I'm Charlene White.
My name is Owen Warner.
I'm Jill Scott.
My name is Babatunde Aleshe.
I'm Olivia Atwood, and you probably know me from Love Island.
People might know me from Celebrity Gogglebox.
I'm famous for kicking a ball around for England.
Probably known best for being part of the England Rugby World Cup winning team.
I'm a TV presenter, mostly known for Place in the Sun and Worst House on the Street.
You might know me for playing Romeo Nightingale on Hollyoaks.
I'm playing Eileen in Coronation Street.
I'm best known for presenting ITV News and Loose Women.
I'm Chris Miles off the radio, innit?
I'm a musician, I'm a singer. I'm bored of sitting in the corner being iconic.
The maggots and the water and the rats and the spiders.
Snakes are really, ain't got legs and they can run really fast. That freaks me out.
Never eaten camel foot before.
I'm pretty sure I'll attempt everything. Whether it stays down or not, who knows?
Did whoever did the interviews there actually say to Boy George, can you please tell us why you're famous? Come on. Come on. Him and Chris Miles are about the only two. And Mike Tyndall.
And Mike Tyndall, yeah.
Chris Miles has lost a lot of weight.
Yes, hasn't he?
He looks amazing. Yeah. Anyway, former Health Secretary Matt Hancock wasn't in that video because he's joining the lineup a little bit later on. Anyway, Stephanie Tetchy is here. Morning.
Good morning, Stephen and Anne.
So what are we to make of all of this?
Oh, my gosh, it's definitely going to be an explosive series. It's been 2 years away from Australia. Last year it was in Wales, so now it's back to the jungle life in Australia. And, of course, we do have former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who will be joining the fold. So he's definitely going to ruffle a few feathers because people don't actually know he's going to be a part of the camp.
Oh, the people who are already out there don't know?
They don't know because they don't have any access to the news, no access to their phones. So he's going to be plugged like the bombshell candidate that will be joining.
It's a great idea to have him in. I mean, I can see that. I know we've already had some messages from some of his constituents who are very annoyed.
Yeah.
But from a sheer, if you're making a programme, he's a great signing, isn't he?
Well, he's going to be good for entertainment value. And, you know, with politicians joining the show, it's always quite a controversial move. But at the moment, we have a campaign which has reached almost 40,000 signatures, which is by the COVID-19 bereaved families for justice who are campaigning for Matt to be taken off the show. The producers aren't going to take him off the show. Right now, it's going to be down to maybe him having a change of heart and him stepping away. But is he going to be stepping away from a speculated £400,000 paycheck? I don't think so.
He'll have thought this through and decided to do it, no matter what.
Well, Matt Hancock is certainly controversial. Let's talk to former contestant and former MP, Lembit Opig, who is here. Morning to you.
Morning.
You're quite pally with Matt, aren't you?
Yes, and I've ended up being his apparently only supporter in the whole of Britain at the moment. I've mentioned earlier on last week that I thought it was quite a good move for him if he wants to make a career change. If he wants to be in the Cabinet, not so much. But actually, it's fairly clear he's had this planned. If he'd gone into the Cabinet, he probably would have turned it down. That's probably happy timing for him. But as you say, ITV played a blinder here. This is the first time in the history of the show, in 22 series, that the politician has been the #1 character, head and shoulders above the rest in terms of media interest.
You see, I have to say, there's a lot of people being very annoyed with Matt Hancock, and I understand why. But I also think if you're going to be annoyed with ITV, because they're the ones saying, we want you in, and here's 400 grand to do it. I mean, it's their fault, isn't it?
No, it's not their fault. ITV is not here to rehabilitate or to damn politicians, including Matt Hancock. They are about ratings, and they're about advertising, and they have absolutely smashed it. Every headline in the country for about 3 days in a row. So, no, I don't think that ITV can be blamed. The question is there some kind of moral failing by Matt Hancock here? And I guess this is where maybe I'm more controversial. I don't think he's actually done anything wrong. Most politicians in all parties work almost every day of the year. And remember, Boris Johnson was in Barbados when the leadership election happened. What would happen, for example, if a politician went to Australia with their family for 4 weeks over the summer? That isn't holiday time, it's recess time. You could spend that time in your constituency.
Were you still an MP when you went in? I can't remember.
No, I wasn't, but I would have gone in if I had been an MP.
Would you? Because you wouldn't be doing your constituency work.
That's right, but my calculation would have been that most things could have been handled for that period of time. I was in incommunicado for 16 days. That's how long I was in. But I would have had the same break clause, which I'm now sure he has. If an emergency happens in the constituency, you break your involvement with the show and you come out. So I think with that caveat, he's not doing as much wrong as a lot of people say.
And I do think we are seeing birth of Matt Hancock, the reality TV star. I think it's evident he's coming to the end of his political career now. So with him starring in Celebrity SAS as well, he's going to be more appearing on TV more than ever now. And so in that sense, I think we're going to have to embrace him as a bit of a TV star over the next few weeks.
We have done with Ed Balls, haven't we? Yeah. We've done with a lot of previous politicians. They've had a second career.
That's right. And there's a small number of people who make the transition successfully. Ed Balls is doing very well, I think, in his TV career. Michael Portillo rehabilitated himself from being one of the most unpopular politicians to one of the most liked celebrities.
He did it through serious documentaries, though.
It's a different path. But we don't really know for sure that Matt doesn't want to stand again. I'm guessing he probably will leave Parliament. Why would you go back into that when you've been in the top flight? He's been a cabinet minister. He's ticked that box. And if he can have a celebrity career, it's more fun.
Is he any good at being a celebrity?
Well, you see, I may be his friend, but I'm also too honest to tell you I know for sure. It's about his effervescence. If you haven't got X factor, if you like, then he'll fade away quite quickly. I think he's probably more energetic and more charismatic than people realise because he's been demonised so much. When you actually meet him, he's a really nice bloke. If he was just the guy down the pub, you'd say, oh yeah, that Matt, he's a good laugh. Whether he can make that transition, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know he's trying.
Yeah, but I was just going to say to you, I mean, despite all of this, and he's the gossip, but you just look at that clip. Boy, George has got to win.
He is favourite to win.
I'm fed up of just being iconic in the corner. I mean, brilliant.
You can tell, like, you know, most of the contestants are fairly not that popular at home, but with Boy George, he's quite a mouthy character, quite controversial. So I definitely feel like he's definitely going to be the star of the show. And I can definitely see him bucking heads with Matt Hancock. So it is going to make for great viewing. Tonight, they're going to start off with the Walk the Plank trial. So that's going to see the celebrities dangling off a 30-foot building sky high. So, again, it's going to be quite interesting seeing them put through their paces and all these kind of challenges.
There's one other great challenge for Matt Hancock. Like you, Anne, he won't know who most of the people are. And I'll be interested to know how many of them know him. There's that awkward moment. When you go in, you meet them and you sort of pretend you know everybody. That was actually, for me, one of the most stressful moments. Thank goodness Sean Ryder was there, together with a couple of other names, I reckon, Linford Christie. But he's going to be an unknown to them. They're going to be an unknown to him.
But the minute he says who he is, they'll know him.
Well, it'll spread like wildfire through the camp.
And, you know, nothing's going to make up for the 200,000 people who died to COVID under his watch, but the public will be able to get their own back with Matt Hancock while he's on that show, because people can vote for him to do trials, and I do feel like he will be voted quite a bit to do some of the most gruesome trials that's on the show.
But don't you agree then there's a dilemma here? He has to be in to suffer. So the public have to keep voting him to stay in the jungle in order to punish him. And that's the irony. If he does well in the trials, they'll say, well, that's boring, and he's more likely to fall out soon. So, in a way, it's a no-win and a no-lose situation at the moment.
Are you glad you did it?
Yeah, I love it. I loved it. I would go back like a shot. If they did
Even though you've just described it as this horrible public voting for you to have a bad time.
Yes, but I enjoyed the camping experience. There is a certain degree of camaraderie there. And look, it's the crown jewels of reality TV. I was flattered to be asked, to be honest. I never really thought of myself as being in that echelon. I'd go back. If they had Best of the Losers, I'd go in straight away. And for less than £400,000.
Yeah, it's all right. Stop making a pitch.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Lembit, Steffi, thank you. And we'll see you later on.
Yeah. I tell you what, everybody who's asked, who's got a view, is then asked, are you going to watch it? And this, for the first time ever, I'll watch it because I just want to see him.
It'll be on at 9 o'clock tonight on ITV.
9 o'clock tonight, is it?
I've never seen it.
No, the whole idea is completely revolting,
started.
but I think I might watch a bit of it.
There you go. We've got much more to come, including the Sunday newspapers in just a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
8:39, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Shall we have a look at today's Sunday newspaper front pages? The Sunday Times leads with a hacking scandal involving some of the country's leading politicians.
The Observer talks about the biggest nursing strike in NHS history, likely to take place before Christmas.
The Mail on Sunday has a royal exclusive, which claims that Prince Andrew was left in tears when his brother, King Charles now, told him he would never return to royal duties.
Sunday Express looks at the Prime Minister's plans to have an extra bank holiday for the King's coronation in May.
And The Mirror has an exclusive, which is all about Boy George in the jungle.
Let's go through those in a bit more detail then with anthropologist Mariana Hotter and political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning to you both. Marianne.
Yes.
We've got a massive asylum issue and migration issue and illegal migration issue in this country. We need to process people more quickly.
We do.
How are we going to do it?
Well, we need to do it properly because otherwise the decisions get overturned in court, which is more time-consuming and hugely more expensive. And unfortunately, the Home Office are recruiting staff to process people's applications, to conduct the interviews, to work out whether someone's asylum claim can be or is legitimate or not. They are recruiting people who have no experience, which is fair enough as long as you train them, but they're not being trained properly. They're using things like the Lonely Planet holiday guides to get a potted history of a country's country background to try and work out whether someone's claim might make sense or not, and the interviews aren't making sense. So this is a report, an interview, I guess, by a whistleblower who's very experienced in the asylum system, and they're saying the people here they get recruited, they get the very basic training and then sort of thrown in at the deep end to interview people describing very traumatic situations, very complex cases, very difficult casework to be done because you haven't got all the documents there. And you're trying to make sense of it all and then apply it to the legal framework that you're using. And people can't do it. And so they leave again. So then you have to recruit more people.
Dear.
So it's not working for us, the taxpayer. It's not working for the people, the poor folk who are doing these jobs and then not being able to do the job, so they leave again. And it's definitely not working to address the asylum case backlog, or indeed, you know, perhaps last on the list, it's not working for the asylum seekers who are having to go through all this traumatic stuff.
It goes some way to explaining why things are taking so long to process an application.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being done not as well as it could be done. And
terrible,
more
terrible
inquiry.
Yeah, and they're life or death decisions. That's the thing it says. They're being asked to make life or death decisions because if you send someone home and it's the wrong person to send home, they may well be tortured or murdered.
Yeah, well, you need the right people doing the job.
Absolutely.
Whatever your view of it all.
Yeah.
Kevin, to the Sunday Times, Gavin Williamson, who's now Minister without Portfolio or some such thing, is being investigated because he sent some stroppy texts to the Chief Whip.
Yeah, so this is the former Chief Whip, Wendy Morton. It's hard to keep up. We go through so many ministers these days. But when the Queen died and they were deciding which Privy Councillors, or senior MPs, were attending the funeral, there are over 700 of these Privy Councillors, so obviously they couldn't all go. And Gavin Williamson was put out, to put it mildly, that he wasn't on the list. So he kicked off and sent these really abusive, foul-mouthed text messages to Wendy Morton, basically accusing her of bias because he wasn't supportive enough of Liz Truss, swearing at her, quite passive, not really passive actually, quite aggressive text messages. Anyway, she complained to the powers that be at the Conservative Party. Now, this is where it gets quite difficult for Rishi Sunak. So Rishi Sunak was warned about this by Jake Berry, who was the chairman of the Tory Party, no longer the chairman, obviously, because he got sacked by Rishi Sunak, and was told, look, Gavin Williamson's been investigated over this complaint against him, but he still made him a minister. And now the details of the text messages have, lo and behold, appeared in the Sunday Times, and they don't look good. I mean, Gavin Williamson is a guy who, he's quite a divisive figure. If you remember, he was sacked as Defence Secretary for allegedly leaking from the National Security Council, which is a big no-no. He was sacked as Education Secretary for the A-level exams fiasco. A big supporter of Rishi Sunak, so Rishi Sunak obviously rewarded him with giving him a job, but he seems to have overlooked the fact that he was
already under investigation for these texts.
Facing a complaints process because of these horrible text messages that he sent to Wendy Morton, the Chief Whip. So a lot of questions, I think, for Rishi Sunak to answer as to why he basically just turned a blind eye to this complaint and gave him a job. And interestingly as well, Jake Berry, who was sacked by Rishi Sunak and was the chairman at the time, he has given a quote to the Sunday Times basically backing up the story, which, again, I think shows that there's difficulty ahead for Rishi Sunak.
Does it matter if someone sends some stroppy text messages?
I mean, have you read them?
How stroppy they are?
No.
Yeah, no, they're pretty bad. You don't send that to a colleague.
No.
Without getting...
It's a man sending them to a woman, which I don't think is great either. And I think if it was in a company and it was an HR process, he would be pulled up for that. He'd probably get sacked, but instead, he's been given a promotion by becoming a minister.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous.
So,
You're Googling them.
No.
They are quite rude messages, aren't they? And they use F words and all the rest of it.
No.
It's no way to speak to your Chief Whip, is it?
No. It's no way to speak to someone at work.
Well, no, it's no way to speak to anyone. But
he's a former Chief Whip himself, and in the text message he's saying, don't forget, I know how this works. There's threatening undertone to the messages. So,
and the thing that we were talking about is it also suggests an arrogance of thinking that you can do that kind of thing, get away with it. It's never going to come out into the public domain. And that's arrogance, I guess, from Rishi Sunak's part as well, that, there's a way of dealing with things like this where it won't get to,
Well, remember when Rishi Sunak
to us, the
became Prime Minister, he stood in the steps of Downing Street and promised professionalism, integrity, and that these text messages don't suggest that. I think if he hadn't given him a job, it wouldn't be a problem for Rishi Sunak, but that's...
Once again, you just wonder at these ministers. They've been ministers and secretaries of state.
Yeah.
Still think it's acceptable to just use that sort of language.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
It's safe to say he's not the most
Very
popular
poor judgment.
MP
No, he's not,
with colleagues. He's known for plotting and, working in the dark. So this, very embarrassing for him, but also, as I say, for number 10.
Yeah, very. OK, let's move on, shall we? Marianne, this is fascinating. White van mams.
White van mam. A third of van drivers are now women. Yep. So...
Should we be surprised at that?
I think because the stereotype is that it's a lad at the wheel. Hey! Like that.
Yeah.
But in fact...
So these are people doing delivery-type jobs?
Could be delivery-type jobs.
Manual labour?
Manual labour, people doing lawn mowing. There's a woman called Paige Waldron, 26, who's been interviewed. She used to be a carer. She now runs a pet sitting service in Derby, and she says she's lost count how many times people go, "You drive a van?" She's like, "Yep, that's my van. It's a white van," and off I go.
Absolutely.
But obviously we can, all rest at ease when it's 50% of women driving vans, and there's 50% of carers are men. And then we can all move on to something else. But until that happens, we've still got work to do.
I just don't really care. I've got to be honest.
I like it when my lady plumber stereotype.
The decorator. When I have to have any rooms decorated in the house, which I need to do actually at the minute, but I'm dreading because it's so expensive. So now is not the time to do it. But my decorator is Pauline.
Good.
And Pauline comes round. Yeah, she's brilliant. Actually,
name and number, please. Okay.
Yeah, she's very, very good. But she does a smashing job. But so I have a female painter and decorator.
That's good.
But I just didn't think about it. I just thought, she's good. It's a good, decent price. Came and had a look. Off you go.
Yeah.
No, quite right too.
That's how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's progress.
But I was talking to someone whose friend's a plumber, and she's a woman, and she said that she has this every day, give or take, there's an experience where she feels like she's representing all of women in plumbing because if she is a bit slower on the, fixing the tap or whatever it is, or kind of plumbing the whatever it is, then it's like, well, there you see, women shouldn't be plumbers. That's man's job, that is. And so she's like every day carrying this burden of womankind and representing.
So I know how she feels.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
It is tough, and I must say, I do it with lady plumbers who go. Mine is a lady too, and she comes along. She's prepared to stick her head in the under-sink cupboard. Who wants to do that? But she does it. Brilliant.
Good on her. I just thought that with all of these things, and without wishing to sound right on, because I'm not very right on, really.
You can be.
I have my moments, but I do just sort of think, when it comes to like STEM subjects and manual jobs, if you want to do the job, do it. I don't care what gender you are, just do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's the pressure of society, isn't it? Or the idea that if you're a young woman walking down the street and you see a white van razzing up the road, chances are a lot of girls will be like, OK, like, is there going to be a beep beep or a, hey, get your legs out or whatever else? And actually, maybe if it's a woman at the wheel, that might stop happening as well.
Oh, okay.
It is less and less, isn't it?
Don't mind if anyone wolf whistles at me. I quite like it.
OK, you must say
not anyone
like that.
You've got to look the other way. Male midwives and all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
Got work to do. Yeah.
Let's talk about fish and chip shops, because I'm worried about this. They're struggling to stay afloat.
They are. I mean, I'd say fish and chips are probably my favourite
food.
It
really is.
Of course you are.
Quintessentially.
Do you have a battered sausage? You strike me as a battered sausage.
I don't know what that means. I don't know why you would think that.
Don't rise to the bait.
No, you do. You just thought like the sobbers should have a battered sausage.
I don't know what that means either.
Yeah.
Never had a battered sausage?
No, I have had a battered
sausage.
I do like it. I won't deny it. I do like a battered sausage, but I prefer fish.
Yeah, me too.
Proper piece of food. If I have to choose. Yeah. Anyway, they are closing left, right and centre because, obviously, the nature of their business, they need their ovens to be on all the time. They've got chiller cabinets, etc., and the energy costs are absolutely hammering them. So there's one here, Jack Backhouse, Bertie's Fish and Chips in New Milton on the edge of the New Forest. His energy bill's gone from £750 a month to over £2,000 a month.
Ouch.
So, and the only way they can make that work is to pass it on to the customer.
Yes.
But then, the customer's going to say, hang on a minute, I'm not going to pay an extra £2 for a fish and chips, and just don't go, and it becomes a vicious circle. Anyway, so they're saying that, all across the country, because of this, there's more and more fish and chip shops are closing. So they're asking for a VAT cut, like we had during the pandemic when it was cut from 20%, I think, down to 5%, for fish and chip shops to save them. I mean, given they're looking to save all this money, I doubt that's going to happen.
But we should save our...
But absolutely, because once they're gone, they don't come back.
It's all those little businesses. If we can get them through, then they, generate profit. They keep the economy going. They've got local people.
Very, very quickly then, because we're being counted out.
My grandparents ran a chippy.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Queen Street Chippy in Dalton. If you ever went there,
we all remember
back
our
in the day.
local chippy, don't we?
Yeah. Love our local chippy.
It's the beating heart of our village, I can tell you, and it's been out of business for a while.
I think that's the thing about sort of things like a VAT cut. It goes back to what we were saying. Tax, often the conversation is, tax is bad, it's the government stealing our money. But actually, if you can use it carefully and sensibly, then it actually creates the society we want, which is something like having a corner shop and a chip shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very quickly, while we're talking about food, we got a moment to quickly tell us, about what Mary Queen of Scots ate while she was waiting for the chop.
Well, before she was waiting for the chop, she was imprisoned for many, many years by her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. And because she was a queen, she got to live in a palace or castle, but she was very much imprisoned. But the British Library have just got hold of documents showing the accounts for the households, and she ate well, at least. I mean, she didn't have her freedom, and then she did get her head chopped off, which is not great.
No.
Veal, boar, salmon.
Really? Scottish salmon?
Let's guess. Saffron, ginger, nutmeg,
that
olives, almonds.
At that time,
saffron was gold.
This is like 1568. Yeah, so she's like eating all the superfoods.
Well, she was a queen.
And fruits preserved in syrup and marmalade.
Oh, very nice.
That's lovely.
We've got just under 60 seconds left from Queen Elizabeth I and what she did to Mary Queen of Scots to Queen Elizabeth II having tea with Tom Cruise.
Who knew? It turns out in the summer, the Queen struck up an unlikely friendship with Tom Cruise. Now, he was involved, if you remember, in the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and because the Queen's mobility wasn't great, she didn't actually get to meet him at the event. So she made it known that she was very disappointed. So he got to fly and land his helicopter and met her, and they'd arranged to meet up in the future. Obviously, that's not sadly going to happen anymore. But there we go. But it's worth it for the headline alone.
Yeah.
My wing mom.
Oh, absolutely.
You see what they did?
Very, very good.
She knew what she was doing, didn't she?
Mary-Ann, Kevin, good to see you both this morning. Thank you very much indeed. And we've got all the top stories heading your way in just a moment after the weather.
Well, the UK is looking particularly wet, I think, across southeastern areas this morning. There will be sunshine and heavy showers elsewhere. Here are the details.
So, quite a breezy end to the morning across the southwest of England. Sunny spells, but also a few showers, some of which could be heavy and thundery.
Meanwhile, across the southeast of England, thicker cloud is expected, giving some more persistent outbreaks of rain, which could give a bit of localised flooding.
Let's move on to South Wales. There's a better chance of some bright spells breaking through the cloud at times, although showers will never be far away and some of them will be a little bit hefty.
A band of organised showers are likely to work their way eastwards across the Midlands during the middle part of the day, so be prepared for some spray and standing water on the roads.
Now, across the northeast of England, the weather's looking quieter. Should be mainly dry. However, a grey, locally misty or foggy start, and there's still likely to be a lot of low cloud around.
Southern Scotland will be quite showery with only short-lived brighter breaks, although it will be breezy, so the showers should push through fairly quickly in the southern wind.
Now, a mixed bag of weather on the cards for Northern Ireland. It's going to be bright and breezy at times, but with the chance of the occasional shower.
So there you have it. Rain will clear from the southeast this afternoon, with eastern parts having clear spells this evening. Blustery showers will continue further west. And that's your weather today.
Monday on GB News. Join my new show, Bev Turner Today, from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is backing a fair, points-based system for immigration.
Morning to you, 9 o'clock, Sunday the 6th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Steve and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK, on your TV, on your radio, online. Wherever you are, you can take us with you. Here are the top stories you need to know about this morning.
Keir Starmer says his party will not support open borders and believes immigration is not the solution to solving the challenges facing the NHS. He has criticised the government for making short-term fixes and using sticking plasters over problems when it comes to the crisis facing the health sector.
The Prime Minister is going to bring back the Bill of Rights as a package of measures to stop migrants from crossing the Channel. GB News has an exclusive report from one of the unofficial migrant camps in Dunkirk, as many attempt to make the journey to the UK.
The climate summit COP27 kicks off today. Rishi Sunak will use the platform to urge world leaders to act faster in transitioning from fossil fuel to clean energy.
And is it too early to get into the festive spirit? Many of us have already visited Christmas markets and we're starting to hang up and put out our decorations. We'll be discussing why looking at Christmas lights and trees and things like that makes us feel so good.
Yeah, I think it's too early, but then I have got like some lights around the trees in the garden, so I get that twinkle all year round. So maybe it's the same thing, same feeling.
I don't know what it is about a lit up tree that makes you feel good.
Oh, it's lovely,
it's nice, isn't it?
Anyway, if you want to join in our discussions this morning, we would love you to do so. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Actually, we had a message from somebody a while ago saying that they hated Christmas.
Oh, yes.
And they said, remember the millions of us. Here we are, Steve in Hastings. Steve, Please remember that there are millions of us who hate Christmas. I'm not religious, and I believe that anyone who has no religion is a hypocrite if they celebrate Christmas. And I can't avoid Christmas because it's everywhere.
Oh.
Look, cheer up.
Oh, come on, get into the spirit
Smile.
a little bit.
It's lovely. You don't have to be religious, actually, to enjoy the Christmas lights, the Christmas spirit, the feeling of being nice to people.
Yeah, a bit of Christmas love.
Having to live with your family for a couple of days.
Oh, come on, that's a lovely thing. It's the best part.
I think it's the best part, but some people dread that. But anyway, what sort of Christmas are you looking forward to? We'd love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now, let's tell you about a London immigration removal centre which has seen some violent disturbances during a power cut. It's understood a group of detainees left their rooms armed with various weapons.
No one was injured in the incident, and the Harmondsworth Removal Centre says those who are responsible will be held to account.
Well, let's talk to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Morning to you, Mark. What do we know?
Well, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, has been speaking about this, describing unacceptable levels of violence during these disturbances. What we know is that a group of those detained at the Harmondsworth Removal Centre had gone into a central courtyard armed with makeshift weapons, and from there were disturbances. It lasted quite some time. The Metropolitan Police Territorial Support Group, public order trained officers, and also the National Prison Service's own public order teams were brought in to bring order back to that facility and to get these individuals back into their rooms. There was a power outage that has not yet, as far as we understand, been resolved. And what we're told is that those hundreds of people at that facility are now being farmed out to other immigration removal centres. The Immigration Minister saying that that will be done securely, that those responsible for this disturbance will be held to account. This processing centre, I say processing centre, removal centre, really is the last link in the chain for those who are failed asylum seekers, other immigration offenders, those who are foreign nationals that have committed crimes while in this country, served prison terms, and they're in the process of being removed. So there have been a number of incidents at removal centres, not just this one, in the past. Conditions have been criticised in the past, but of course Robert Jenrick saying whatever the conditions, there is no excuse for the levels of violence that we saw there.
OK, Mark, for now, thanks very much indeed. We're also joining us this morning, our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. And we're in an interesting point politically, Tom, aren't we? As this is clearly a crisis which has got to be grappled with by the government. Sir Keir Starmer's sort of jumped on the immigration bandwagon, but really going for the centre ground on this one. I mean, it's clearly trying to pull over Tory voters who are disillusioned.
Absolutely. At Prime Minister's Questions this week, Sir Keir Starmer used all 6 questions, and the Leader of the Opposition traditionally gets 6 questions to ask the Prime Minister. All 6 of them were on the issue of migration and how it was being handled. And particularly what the Labour Party is attempting to do is ask the question, well, if you admit this is a broken system, as the Home Secretary does, who broke it? And at what point were things running well? Because, of course, in one form or other, the Conservatives have been in power since 2010. Now, off the other side, the Conservatives will say, well, of course, from 2010 to 2015, it wasn't a Conservative government, it was a coalition government. And we know that the Liberal Democrats are the most liberal on the issue of migration. And so compromises were made there. And, of course, from 2017 to 2019, the Conservatives didn't have a majority at all. So really, if we're looking across the whole period, perhaps the Conservative Party hasn't been in power as much as 12 years. But really, when you're looking at the question of asylum, the problem is that for the last 3 years, the Conservatives have had a decent majority in Parliament, and things haven't got better. In fact, the issue has got worse. Now, there are outside factors with regard to this. There are countries whereby more people are coming than ever before. There's pressure on the system, but it's how resilient the system is to that pressure that is the problem.
What's this business, then, about the Bill of Rights? and sort of seizing back the power so that we don't have to do everything according to the European Court of Human Rights.
So this is an initiative by Dominic Raab that was actually put on the back burner by Liz Truss. It was announced when Dominic Raab was the Justice Secretary, a way to sort of overrule or reassert British supremacy when it comes to these issues. Now, there are lots of lawyers who argue different things on the legality of this as to whether or not the UK Supreme Court would really be supreme in all of these decisions, but that's certainly the intention of this piece of legislation. And it would reassert that British primacy, laying out where decisions can be made. Now, that's being brought back. Dominic Raab, of course, is once again Justice Secretary, and this bill will be being brought back. The real devil will be in the detail, though, the particulars of this and how exactly it's supposed to work, because let's remember, we are still a signatory to the European Convention on Human Rights, and whilst this bill says that we'll make our own Supreme Court supreme, it doesn't say we'll withdraw from that convention. So there's a bit of tension there and a lot of detail to work through.
OK. Tom, for now, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, well, it's a real struggle for everybody involved in government, isn't it? And the Home Secretary is pushing for what they say is the biggest ever deal with France to tackle illegal migrants on the south coast.
Now, the agreement, which the UK hopes to finalise in the next few weeks, would see an increase in French officers patrolling beaches.
Meanwhile, official figures show that channel crossings have reached almost 40,000 this year. Our reporter Paul Hawkins has been to the French coast to speak to some of those wanting to make the dangerous journey.
This is one of the many unofficial migrant camps on the outskirts of Dunkirk. We were told by humanitarian workers they tend to be segregated. Afghans living down the tracks, Albanians a growing number but seemingly elusive. This one mostly Kurdish and mostly young men escaping war or persecution in Iraq.
I am Dana from Iraq. I was 40 years old. I work in Baghdad. When Saddam took me in jail and take one kidney for me in left side. But nobody need to say, yeah, you are Dana, you are Lay. Everybody asked to me, you are not this person. This person is dead in Iraq. But I am not dead, I am here. No, I come here to France 2 weeks. I try go with boat to England.
You tried 3 times on the boats, and what happened?
He take me in the beach where I go to in the boat. Okay. There I come back. I not go inside the boat.
But you're still going to try?
Of course.
Why the UK? Do you want to work in the UK?
I like work. Everybody like work on merit, on make children.
What kind of jobs can you do?
That's my job.
So that's your forklift driver's license from Germany?
Yes, I work 2 years.
Okay.
I work very well.
Okay. And how many times will you keep trying on the boat?
I stay here, or I go dead here, or I go in UK.
Okay.
I no have choice.
A 15-minute drive, or if you're a migrant, 2-hour walk away are beaches like this. Plage du Petit. 2-hour walk from the camp, where desperate people like Dana meet the people smugglers, but only during calm seas. Today wasn't that day.
This boat looks like it's been deliberately torn, ripped, and we know that the authorities in France try to destroy the boats if they find them by stabbing them and shredding them with a knife. So quite possibly this boat was going to be used to cross the channel, but the authorities have got here first.
Everyone here wants to get to the UK. Many have tried multiple times.
A lot of Albanian men are now going over on the boats. How do you feel about Albanian men being here? Because you're coming from Iraq, but Albania is a safe country.
Yes, I ask also for the Albanian why he coming, saying we don't have work there.
And are they going to the UK to get involved in crime or to work?
For Albania, there is work is number one. What thinking for?
The British people are scared of people coming over on boats. What would you say to them, to people who are scared?
I have to say for the people, I am sorry for this situation, but in our land is problem mafia in my land. It's not a good government as England. British people have a right. That's scary for the people going there because give too much criminal.
This Kurdish family of 8 were standing up because most of their tents were full of water. They told me they were 20 minutes from Dover when they had to turn back on their last attempt. Among them, 8-month-old Mila. Rats are everywhere here. Disease is common. Life, especially in winter, difficult. One migrant told me he'd rather stay here than be deported to Rwanda if the government gets its way. But others said anywhere is better than these camps. The UK, attractive because the language is easier. There are jobs and some have family there.
There's this weird symmetry that 82 years ago, during the evacuation of Dunkirk, a flotilla of small boats left this French coastline for Britain. It was a moment of hope for us that as allies we would regroup and then come back to liberate the French in Western Europe. It's weird that 82 years later there's another flotilla of small boats leaving the French coast for Britain, and for some in those boats it's a moment of hope for them.
And it's that hope that the criminal gangs are exploiting. In the meantime, the boats keep coming. Paul Hawkins, GB News.
I have some interesting views on that. Roger has been in touch. Morning, Roger. Says, we're talking about the man that Paul was talking to there, the qualified forklift driver waiting for a small boat in Calais. I get the impression he doesn't realise that if he applies via the legal route, he'd probably get accepted and save himself thousands of pounds. How about setting up a qualification centre in Calais and advise those welcome immigrants to apply?
Yes, you see, Paul agrees. The migrant interviewed spoke English and had a forklift truck licence. We should get people like him processed really quickly and get him working for the economy and for himself. Check all migrants for trades. We need them.
Yeah. I mean, that's common sense, you see. It's what you've got lots of, common sense, but it doesn't seem to get through the system.
Has Matt Hancock got any common sense? He's going to be in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which starts tonight, although I don't think he'll be in tonight's episode. No. John says Matt Hancock is no celebrity. He's the only person, apart from Mike Tindall, that I recognise on the show. So he is. Rick says just vote him out first to crush his ego and make a statement for all those that suffered under his tenure.
Paul in Salford says, anyone considered if any of those celebrities have lost family members through COVID, how personal would that be? Well, Matt Hancock isn't responsible for people dying in that. Do you know what I mean? I think that's wrong to blame him for people. I mean, heck, half the people, that seem to think that we shouldn't have had lockdowns and vaccines and all the rest of it.
There's a lot of that around.
And so that would be even worse. I mean, I think that's a little bit unfair.
You forget what it was like, I think. Shelley says, I honestly don't understand why everyone's so annoyed about Matt Hancock going into the jungle. If he were my constituency MP, I might be annoyed, but as for the rest of the country, get over it.
Mark in Wolverhampton, though, has got a very good point. He says, why should he get paid as an MP when he won't be doing his day job as an MP? Fair enough, go do the jungle after he's resigned and he's no longer getting paid. I agree with that. Don't pay him as an MP, suspend his money.
Although, no, you see, I don't understand that. I mean, even MPs have got to take some time off their job as an MP. So if he could actually legitimately say, this is my time off,
well, he'd claim it as holiday. Yeah, I suppose he could be claiming it as holiday.
I mean, people were really miss about Boris Johnson being in the Caribbean during the Liz Truss saga. Trying to think of the right word, yeah. But he'd gone off on... He'd just been ousted as Prime Minister. He held on in there while he was meant to, and then as soon as she became leader, he went off to the Caribbean. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No.
It's a holiday.
Though they do have plenty of recess time.
As leader. Wouldn't you feel if you've just been kicked out as leader, say, heck, I'm going to take the family on a holiday to the Caribbean?
Well, I think under those circumstances. Hazel in Nottingham on the cost of living. And do you know what, Hazel? I think you've got a point. She says, I'm really doubting all this hype in the media about people having to choose between heating or eating. On Friday, I went to a massive retail outlet. After driving around the car park for ages, I had to leave as there were no spaces to be had. Maybe some people are really struggling, but we are not a country where everyone is about to starve.
I think you're dead right there. I really do. I think the heating and eating thing became a catchphrase that all of the media sort of grabbed onto. And I think you're dead right. It's not true of everybody at all.
No. I think
everybody's
everyone's
going to
feeling
feel
the pinch.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we've been using the same language now. Oh, what we're
really
turning
are.
into.
This is bad, isn't it?
But no, but I think everyone is feeling it, but those people who are really, really struggling are comparatively small, which should mean it's easier to focus help on helping them, really.
And on to the subject of those detention camps or processing camps and the recent trouble. Jeff has emailed in. He said, I've been part of the prison service intervention team for 20 years. For about 15 years, I have been dispatched to this facility to be part of the effort to regain order and control. This trouble is not new. I went once because the drinks machine had broken down and this caused a riot.
So it's the thing is, tension's that high, it's not going to take much, is it, just to set it all off? Keep your thoughts coming through, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Let's bring you up to date at 17 minutes past 9.
An investigation has been launched into Cabinet Office Minister Sir Gavin Williamson over messages he allegedly sent to the then Tory Chief Whip. The messages, which have now been obtained by the Sunday Times, appear to show him accusing Wendy Morton of using the death of the Queen to punish certain MPs who were out of favour with Liz Truss's new government. Rishi Sunak was apparently told about the complaint before he did appoint Sir Gavin as a minister without portfolio, which he is now.
At least 38 people have been injured in an apartment fire thought to have been caused by an electric scooter in New York. The video shows firefighters rescuing people from the 20th floor of the building. Dramatic pictures as well. 2 people are in a critical condition, 5 others seriously injured. The New York Fire Department says it is the 200th fire caused by a lithium battery in the city this year.
And in the sprint for the so-called midterms, the biggest names in American politics came to Pennsylvania in an effort to tip the vote in their favour. President Joe Biden, former President Barack Obama campaigned for the Democrat nominee, John Fetterman, and former President Donald Trump was showing his support for the Republican candidate and TV personality, Dr. Mehmet Oz. And this comes after Mr. Trump teased that he is thinking of running for president again.
Get your plans in place for next May because the PM's announced an additional bank holiday to mark the King's coronation. It's going to be Monday the 8th of May, so that's after the coronation on the Saturday. The PM says he's looking forward to seeing people come together to celebrate and pay tribute to King Charles III. So 3 bank holiday Mondays in May now, which seems a bit excessive, but actually it might make it a very nice month.
It really will be. Let's hope it really is. It'll be nice. I mean, it'll be the first time most of us have ever seen anyone crowned king or queen.
Yeah.
More to come, including a look ahead to COP27.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
and online. We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel. Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me. Noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
"9:23 morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, the United Nations Climate Summit, COP27, has begun. The first people due to take to the podium shortly are UN's new climate change chief, Simon Stiell, and the Egyptian Foreign Affairs Minister and COP27 President-designate, Sami Shukri.
Well, the World Health Organization is urging leaders to negotiate a treaty to move away from fossil fuels. And Rishi Sunak will also be pledging to make the UK a clean energy superpower when he arrives there later on today.
As I said, that they're starting to arrive already at the moment, but nobody recognisable is arriving quite yet. That'll be a bit later on, but obviously all during the day. Oh, there we are. We've got some live pictures there of everybody beginning to assemble for the opening speeches.
Yes. So there you go. Look, let's talk to senior economics analyst at the Orthodox Conservative Group, Philip Pilkington, who's here in the studio. What do you think when you look at all this, Philip? I mean, do you think, well, look, this is potentially going to come up with some solutions, some positive outcomes?
Well, I think the general policies and the agenda are quite similar to what they were previous years. But I think the concern this year is that it's taking place against the backdrop of a quite severe energy crisis. And it's quite easy to talk about green policies when we have cheap access to cheap energy, gas is freely flowing, and petrol prices are low. But when these things start to get out of control, I think some of the organisers are probably quite worried that that this might take a backseat to the energy issues.
Really? Because I thought perhaps that was good. That would drive it forward. Way around, yeah, because I mean, it shows that we need energy security, and you get that through renewables.
Well, I think actually probably the renewables have undermined the energy security in the case of the United Kingdom. So the renewables. Why? Well, they've led us to adopt basically to move away from energy sources that have been historically important to the Isles, which coal basically and nuclear, and toward the green energy. But in order to supplement the green energy, we've had to rely on gas imports and electricity imports from France. And of course, this winter, it looks like we're going to see a shortage of those gas imports.
But if I were there at COP27, I would be arguing that means that we must do something more green now. You know, we were complacent and lazy in not doing it earlier. It actually underlines, rather, the need for green policy thinking.
I don't think any country has proved that we can have a fully green grid. Every country, like Germany or the UK, that has a very large green grid massively relies on natural gas. Now, perhaps in the future, we could get to an entirely green grid. But as far as the evidence stands today, there is no country on Earth that I'm aware of that has a fully green grid and is not highly reliant on natural gas.
Well, no, but then that's why there is a push towards more nuclear isn't there? I mean, you've got Sizewell C, which hopefully is going to get the sort of nod again, and Hinkley Point C, which is underway, and they're also looking at these smaller plants which could be around the country. So, I mean, nuclear would then become the backup, wouldn't it?
Well, we'd hope so, but nuclear power takes quite a long time to bring online. I think it takes at least 7 years to build a nuclear power plant. Now, I'm all in favour of doing that, but that's 7 years out. I think the concern around the COP27 agenda at the moment is basically that the green agenda, as it were, might get derailed by a very severe energy crisis in this country and across Europe this winter.
Do you think that could be avoided with the right mindset, or do you think it's inevitable?
It depends on how people respond. We'll see after this winter how much people are concerned about energy insecurity. So long as the energy insecurity takes place, we may get through the winter. There are some projections saying that we may, but it's up in the air. And I saw that the civil servants were planning for quite severe energy disruptions earlier this week.
I just find it fascinating because I mean, your perspective is entirely different to what I was expecting. In and of the sense that what this shows us is we've become far too reliant on getting our energy sources from other countries, and therefore we need energy security. Well, you know, we haven't got the resources actually in the long term to do fossil fuels for that long. I mean, they're a finite resource. So therefore, pushing a greener agenda and developing things like storage for electricity and what have you, which is a big issue, that would therefore be the way, a very clear way forward.
As I said, if in the future we can see a country that has majority green...
Well, why don't we become the first?
I don't know if it's possible.
Why don't
I'm
we
not
try
sure
and make
that
it possible? I mean...
It may not work.
It's about mindset, though, isn't it? I mean, you're arguing, yes, negatively, it may not work, we might not be able to do it. But somebody else might be able to say, well, we'll never know if we don't try.
But if we try and we fail, it could have severe consequences.
It's very negative thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think when it comes to energy security, you need to be very careful with your country. I think it's a very, very important core economic issue, and experimenting with it when we have the kind of geopolitical turmoil that we currently have may not be a very wise move.
Well, I mean, but it would be about capital expenditure, wouldn't it? And an increasing investment in the country and all the rest of it to try and get these systems up and running. Now, if it failed, we were not dismantling the other infrastructure first, are we? That the global supply of gas and all the rest of it, expensive or otherwise, is still going to be there to tap into if we need it. So you get another infrastructure up and running before you dismantled anything else.
I think it would be fine to try everything at once, but of course the budget's pretty squeezed these days as well. Again, partly due to rising energy costs. We've got a price energy cap in place, which is costing an absolute fortune. So I think we may, after the winter, have to recheck our priorities here. And it might be the case that what has worked in the past might need to work in the future.
But even then, as you just said yourself, if we went back to more coal, if we looked again at fracking and decided we would go ahead and frack, and tried to build maybe another nuclear power station, all of those things would take as long as investing in something more green and ecological.
Again, I'm saying that those things have proved themselves in the past. A fully green grid has not currently been proven. Now, if the argument is that we may temporarily use some of these tried and tested technologies, and then during that phase experiment more with the green technologies, I think that will be a reasonable way forward. But to experiment with an experimental technology in the middle of a crisis without any backup seems to me a fairly bad idea.
OK. Philip Pilkington, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Let us know what you think.
Oh, yes.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And do stay with us. We've got plenty more to come, including, is it too early to think Christmas? Some of us think it really is far too early, but the Christmas markets are up and running, and I know that many of you are already putting up your Christmas decorations. We'll talk about why. Why does it make us feel so good to think Christmas? Or at least most of us.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
8:34 morning, Jack. I can tell you Miss Diamond here is craving fish and chips.
Absolutely craving fish and chips, because we were talking about it earlier, the fact that a lot of chip shops are suffering at the moment because their electricity bills are going so high that they actually can't afford to keep going. And it just got me thinking about fish and chips.
And now you're really wanting
And
some.
even these posh delivery services that are in London won't do fish and chips at this time of day on a Sunday.
Probably just a bit too early. But you see, my grandparents ran a fish and chip shop in Dalton-in-Furness back in the day, before I was born, I have to say, Queen Street Chippy. But people love a bit of fish and chips. And this is our favourite, possibly our favourite email of the day, do you think, from Catherine?
Oh, yes, this is lovely.
She said, I used to meet my now husband outside our local chippy when I was 14 and he was 16. And we used to enjoy a bag of chips. We're now 69 and 71 and still enjoy our fish and chips.
God bless you. Absolutely. The perfect way to meet your date, isn't it?
Lovely
Chip
bag of chips.
Yeah, and sharing a bag of chips
on
a chilly night. I think that's just such fun.
When did I last share a bag of chips? I think we were in Blackpool. We'd gone up to Blackpool for a couple of days and had a bag of chips on the front, because you just do, don't you? And it was just loads of salt and vinegar.
Yeah, and I remember with a very early boyfriend going to a chippy that we used to go to in Weston-super-Mare. Because again, if it's by the seaside, it's even better, isn't it? I don't know why, but just sort of sharing a bag of chips. and burning your fingers almost because they're so hot.
And then the scraps at the bottom.
Yeah.
I love the scraps.
Why is that lovely?
But my local chippy changed its... A few years ago, it was something other fish and chips, and it then changed its name to... I don't know if it was bought out or what, I don't know. But it's now called Fish and Chicken.
Oh, fish and chicken.
And so it's just like... So I've never been back since, because it just doesn't...
It's not the same.
Fish and Chicken.
You should just call it your local chippy.
Just chippy, your chippy.
Everybody knows what that means.
Yeah, Ian in Wallsend says fish and chip vans won't be hit as hard because of energy price rises as those with premises. No, I suppose, because if you buy gas containers, they're not going up as much. We get ours from a van every Friday in Reeth.
From a fish and chip van?
Best tasting ever.
Well, they must have the they must have the great deep fat fries going in a van then.
Yeah, but you'd be doing it off... If you buy gas cylinders, like for your barbecue and things, they are still quite expensive, but they're less expensive than you'd think. They haven't gone up by the same amount. I don't know if it's because it's liquid gas, or I don't know, for whatever reason.
I used to have a deep fat fryer at home, but it always terrified me.
Yeah.
They are very frightening, some of those things. Because you realise just how dangerous it could be if you put 1 foot wrong.
Yeah, I've never actually used a deep fat fryer. I remember, Mum, we had one at home when I was growing up.
Tell you what deep fat fryers are good at, doing roast potatoes.
Oh.
It's a cheat. But you parboil the potatoes and then fluff them up a bit and then put them in a deep fat fryer. Oh, they're so crispy.
They do cause a lot of house fires, don't they, deep fat
Well, that's why I was worried. Gosh, that headline about the lithium battery, the scooter, causing their 200th fire in New York. Was it New York?
Yeah, New York.
Yeah, who knew? Except we had heard about those, hadn't they? Because they have very large batteries. And I think if you buy cheap versions, you need to worry about the quality of the battery.
It's funny, lithium-ion batteries are more efficient. You get more power out of them for a longer period of time, but clearly, issues recharging them. The recharging things, you've got to be careful.
I've got one of those electric bikes. Does that take a lithium battery?
I would imagine it would, yeah.
Oh, heck.
Do you keep it in the house?
Well, the battery, yes.
Oh.
Because that's where the recharging unit is.
Oh. When were you last on it?
About 5 years ago.
I'd unplug it then for now.
Yeah. I think I have unplugged it, but ooh. Yeah.
Oh, dear me. I have to say, when it comes to fish and chips and all that, our director's been making very bad jokes about cod in our ears.
Has he indeed?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Also about the codfather and
all
this.
yes.
I mean, it's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, I'll tell you what we should do, though, because we were talking Christmas, actually, and what's been on. There's a lot of Christmas markets and things getting underway at the minute.
Oh, November is the time for Christmas markets.
It's when it all kicks off, isn't it? But, of course, footfall is down at a lot of places, but is it going to pick up for Christmas markets and things? I think so. Let's hope so. Well, our North West of England reporter, Sophie Reaper, is at the Knutsford Makers Market for us this morning. Sophie, morning to you. Are they expecting it to be a busy day?
Good morning to you both. I think we are. When I spoke to you earlier this morning, it was quite early on, so there weren't that many people around, but now it's very bustling. There's quite a lot of people around. There's still a bit of setup going on, but a lot of the stalls are up and ready to go for that start at 11 a.m. Now, this Makers Market happens all over the Northwest. They have one in Preston, they have one in Warrington, there's one in Manchester City Centre, but this one in Knutsford, it's the last one before Christmas, so a lot of the sellers are encouraging people to come down today and to support them. Obviously, it's been the pandemic and now we're into the cost of living crisis, so a lot of small businesses have been struggling. And a little bit earlier, I spoke to some of the sellers about how they've been faring.
People are really, really watching what they're spending, and they'll buy the small stuff, but that's not making a load of profit for you.
Struggling. I think we're struggling a lot, to be honest. It's very hard work, but we enjoy doing what we do, and it's hard at the times, but there's no money out there anymore, so people just don't want to buy anything.
It doesn't really affect us as an artisan because we work in small, but I believe the crisis is a bit bad for everyone because people can't pay bills, they can't pay mortgages.
Oh dear, well let's go back.
Birmingham's Christmas market is back for 2022, and as the most visited authentic German market outside of Germany and Austria, millions come to visit here from around the UK and Europe. For Birmingham, that means a huge stimulation to the local economy.
So we've been welcoming the Frankfurt Christmas market here to Birmingham since 1997. Adds around about £250 million worth of extra commerce over the Christmas period, supports about 7,000 jobs, and we get about 5 million visitors come to the city every year. And it's a lot of fun. It's one of the best things about the Christmas period here in Birmingham. We need some things to cheer us up right now, don't we? Things are very, very grim. And, German market comes here every year, brings some festive cheer to the city and helps support the local economy.
To put on a market like this, though, requires energy, and higher prices have impacted the cost visitors will pay.
We paid in the past for 1 litre about 40 pence. Now it is £2.20. The product's a little bit more expensive than before, and it's all over. I think people will accept this.
Last year, day visitors spent an average of £58 per person. But what is it about the market that they love?
Just the beer and the sausage.
I think it's just like the variety of stuff you can get. Like you can get like bottomless drink, you can get like donuts, you can get sausages, and there's so much to get. And everyone's in like a happy mood, so yeah.
It's the 22nd year of the market here in Birmingham, and from hot chocolate to hot dogs, it's hard to not get into the Christmas spirit. And as day turns to night, people flood the town square to enjoy a drink and catch up with friends. Even in darker financial times, Birmingham's German market is providing some light to people's lives this Christmas. Jack Carson, GB News.
Oh, so it's certainly bustling there
We're
in
back
Birmingham.
at Knutsford Makers Market. I'm joined now by Brian Hood, one of the stall holders here at Knutsford Makers Market. Brian, tell me a little bit about how you've been affected by the cost of living crisis.
Well, I'm a small batch soap maker. I make shaving soaps and bar soaps, and I think the main thing that's impacted on my business certainly is massive increases in raw material prices, which creates a dilemma then. Do I put prices up, or do I have to, take the sort of hit myself? And as a small business, it's very difficult for us to put up prices because there's a price point for everything. So obviously it has hit, I think, all of us on the market quite considerably.
Of course, we're in the run-up to Christmas now, 7 weeks to go, but 2/3 of Brits have said they're going to be cutting back this Christmas. How do you think that's going to impact you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think we're all, fighting really to survive, I think, on the markets. And I think if people just remember, we're all very small businesses. We're not Tesco's of this world, and we don't command the ability to influence raw material prices. We've just got to go with what we can do. So I would really just ask people to support any small business they can, because that's people's livelihoods, and hopefully we can all survive through. And a lot of people have lost businesses in the pandemic and the consequences of Ukraine, so it just adds further and further to that. So please support any little business around the country, and we'd all be grateful for that because it makes a big difference.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Brian. Of course, everyone here at Knutsford Makers Market is hoping for that support to help them get through Christmas and then the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Sophie, thank you. Grab us a nice block of cheese so there'll be a cheese stall there somewhere. Yeah. Love a bit of that.
Vivian in Chesterfield. Hi, Vivian, says, I can't wait for Christmas. I've already watched 11 Christmas films and I'm looking forward to putting up the decks and visiting Christmas markets. And Sian's going to Frankfurt Christmas market and we'll be driving there.
Oh, that'll be a good time. Like the Vienna Christmas market's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back there.
See, they all had to close down during the pandemic, and but I think this is the first now Christmas season. They'll be back in business big time.
Well, lovely. And, when you think about it, there are only 49 sleeps to go until Christmas Day. See how Father Christmas has been. But already, of course, many people are starting to celebrate.
In fact, TV presenter Rochelle Humes has posted a picture of her Christmas tree. Yeah, see? That's a big, tall one, too.
She's just showing off how much room she's got.
I know, everybody does that, don't they? But she's not the only one, because we've got a GB News viewer and listener, Charlene Quick, who's already decorated her home in Hertfordshire. And she just, full Christmas spirit.
Fabulous.
Oh, Charlene, I'm so pleased you've thrown yourself into the Christmas spirit so soon. Do your neighbours not think you're a bit mad to be doing all this still in November? Beginning of November.
Well, they do always say things, but my neighbours yesterday said that I've inspired them, so some of them are actually going to put their trees up today.
I mean, well, why do you do it so early?
Well, it's not early. I just enjoy the inner child, I suppose. It brings it out in me, and I love the sparkly lights. And, you know, with the nights getting darker, you come home, put your Christmas tree on, and it just feels all warm and cosy and brilliant. And I love Christmas songs. I've actually got Heart Christmas playing all the time, so...
I love the tree behind you as well. That looks like a... How long did it take you to get it looking that glamorous?
Oh, well, because I'm an old hat at it now. It goes up on the 31st of October at midnight. So it takes me probably about 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah,
so heck, is that all?
You get Halloween out the way and then you throw yourself into Christmas. I don't blame you. I think that looks really brilliant.
So how long do you keep... How long, Charlene, do you keep it up for?
Well, I must confess, when the kids were younger, I used to take it down probably just after Boxing Day to make way for all the toys. But now I can keep it up for longer, so normally about the 5th or 6th.
Oh, well,
that's quite disciplined of you. I keep mine going till February.
Do you?
Yeah, Valentine's Day. It's nice with Christmas trees, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's nice. Well, look, Charlene, you put us all to shame. Well, you put me to shame because I haven't done anything yet, and it wasn't end of November for me. Am I leaving it too late?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, quite right. Absolutely, throw yourself in.
Yeah.
So, but why? I think that's what we're wondering. Why does it make you feel good to be putting up the Christmas lights? And why does it make you good to see a beautifully lit tree? What is there about... What is it, what Charlene was saying there, about something to do with your inner child? We're joined now by psychologist Jo Hemmings. Hello there, Jo.
Hi.
Is that what it's all about? Does it just make us feel like children again?
I think so, to a degree. It's tapping into nostalgia, isn't it? And memories, and happy memories particularly, which we need so much of at the moment. So I totally get it. You know, we often replicate the Christmases we had as children, the Christmases our parents gave us for our own children. And so there's a real sense of anticipation about Christmas, of course. And some of us just can't wait to have the decorations up, can't wait to feel that sense of joy and fun and the goodwill. So yeah, I get why people put them up early, but it's very much to do with tapping into the Christmases of our past, simpler times, an easier bygone era that I think people really feel they need. Particularly, we've had a couple of, you know, COVID hit Christmases, and now we've got a cost of living hit Christmas, and that just means there's perhaps a yearning more than ever to try and recreate the scenes of our childhood.
But because we need that little lift, and I totally get that, do we risk diluting it somewhat and actually making the Christmas week itself less special if we're doing it for months at a time?
I think people will often claim that there are Christmas ads on too early, there's Christmas produce in the shops way too early. I think it's usually the 1st of September. For me, I think that is too early. For others, it can't come early enough. So I think it's down to the individual. You know, you can either sit there listening to Christmas music, watching those Christmas movies from October onwards, or you can wait. So it doesn't spoil your sense of the occasion. You can wait perhaps till the 1st of December or even later. So it's entirely up to how you feel about it. If you want to go for it like Charlene did early on and just get that lovely feeling much earlier and it doesn't spoil the main event, absolutely go for it. If you want to kind of delay the anticipation, then I think, you know, you just wait a little bit longer.
Great. Have a happy Christmas if we don't see you before. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. I do think we all yearn for maybe we have nostalgia for a time that maybe we never actually knew. We still think of 1950s England, you know, with steam trains, don't we? And,
yes.
And things like that. Picket fences, you know. Most of it's an experience we never actually experienced as children ourselves.
No.
Stephanie Aiden, of course, has joined us.
I love Christmas. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Like Wizard says, I wish it could be Christmas every single day. I love the build-up towards it. I just love that kind of feeling of goodwill that's around and just having a bit of a winter wonderland. I love it all.
How about you, Aidan?
I am Mr. Christmas.
No, actually, I've not been for a while actually, just because I looked after Dad at home for all those years, and putting up decorations just posed a hazard. Just wires and lights and everything all over the place. So it's my second Christmas without him. So I think I'm going to make an effort this year and put some actual decorations up. My sister-in-law is Matt. She's literally Mrs. Christmas. Literally Mrs. Christmas. She loves it. She'd have it every day like you as well.
Yeah, we get all our decorations from like the last week of November. It's all down, all ready to go by the 1st of December, and like literally we light up our whole street. We're one of those houses where it's extreme. It's like an extreme.
Do you have a house nearby where it attracts kind of viewers? In fact, we've got one.
That's her house. That's her house. Yeah, I mean, I have to say there is something lovely about when you drive past those places and you actually go totally over the top.
Yeah.
But it's quite nice to see.
You can make donations as well into the box, and they give them away to the local charities or something. Yeah, it's quite spectacular. It must be quite expensive. Actually.
See, when I was single, I didn't bother. I didn't put any decks up or anything. I didn't do anything at all.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's all
that's because
lasers on the front of the house, and lasers at the back, and the whole thing.
But
I love
lasers?
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do a laser show? Does it do things?
Well, no, it just dances about the front.
Oh!
But,
that's good.
Oh, is that your house?
That's my house.
Oh,
yeah.
my goodness. I really do
That's
go
a good
for it.
one. That's a good year. Usually it's more extreme.
So was that last night?
Wow.
Right.
We go all in.
That's me. That's my sister-in-law's tree.
Oh, that is a very stylish
So
tree.
about two blocks away from
That is
all right, well, here's a controversial one for you, because as pretty as that is, all due respect to your sister-in-law and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, like white lights all over the tree, right?
Yeah,
we got coloured lights.
Oh, no, I don't like coloured lights.
But I've coloured lights.
I like warm white.
Yeah, no
white.
colour. But I tell you partly why coloured, because it's nostalgic. It's like we had when we were kids. It's all just coloured lights.
Yeah, they kind of went out of fashion a little bit, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're back in now.
I always remember driving down Hyde Park Corner as children, and the first trees we'd see, they'd always be a little bit earlier, but they'd have the first trees we'd see, we'd have the white lights on. They always look quite classy to me.
Yeah, I do think the white lights are more classy, but we
But you can have a mix, can't you?
But that's the point. It's quite
Oh, see, I'm with you on that
You can
one.
do something different every year. That's why you need to start early.
The big thing is actually some people have a white Christmas tree. My best friend always shuns a green Christmas trees, always goes for the white one.
Really?
Which is quite retro.
When we were kids as well, there was a trend towards artificial trees.
Oh, yeah.
You get them from Argos or whatever, and then, fold it out and
Then you have to put it away again.
Yeah, you do, and then but I think the problem at the time was that the needles on the real ones used to just fall off and cause quite a lot of pain. They are much better. You can spray them as well. I think you don't see that many artificial trees. If they are artificial trees, they actually look like real ones. Don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they are, but they're expensive though. But if you've got a real Christmas tree, you've got to sort of keep it in water. You've got to water it every day, like a plant.
And de-spider it before you bring it in the house. Oh. I have to go through a ritual of sticking it in the garden and looking for things, creepy crawlies, and getting rid of them.
Did you put chocolate on the branches or anything in the?
No, but when I was growing up, I had a friend who had a tiny little tree like that, and it was obviously a fake one. And they'd had the same chocolate decorations on for about 30 years.
That's a bit mouldy.
I mean, that was a bit grim.
Probably have a topic on there or something.
You won't want to pinch one.
No.
I'm all about the Christmas films. I watch 25 Christmas films every day as soon as December hits.
Puts you in the mood.
Oh, no, that's a bit too much for me. Look, thank you both. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We'll see you next Friday.
Yes.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
I'll be putting up a tree tomorrow. Well, the UK is looking particularly wet, I think, across southeastern areas this morning. There will be sunshine and heavy showers elsewhere. Here are the details.
So, quite a breezy end to the morning across the southwest of England. Sunny spells, but also a few showers, some of which could be heavy and thundery.
Meanwhile, across the southeast of England, thicker cloud is expected, giving some more persistent outbreaks of rain, which could give a bit of localised flooding.
Let's move on to South Wales. There's a better chance of some bright spells breaking through the cloud at times, although showers will never be far away and some of them will be a little bit hefty.
A ban
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps.
on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.